melt is when I'm ocean wave.
Tonight on Nova Legends podcast, I have my 2022 year in review with some excellent local podcasters. They do much more than local sports, but guys that I watch a lot. Guys, thanks for joining me tonight.
Oh yeah, thanks for having me.
What's up? Appreciate you having me.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Well, first I'm gonna introduce a team. Kirk Hilliard and Rusty Byrd. Both these guys are from what they call the 757 Peninsula, Hampton Roads. Phoebus and Bethel. They started a podcast. At first, they were focusing in on the Prince William and also their home area, Tidewater. But I think it's fair to say they're the whole state now. They do a lot of football. These guys hustle. They go of all the people on this call. They're the ones that hustle. They have an eye for talent. They've been able to find guys around the state to come on their podcast, and guys like Anthony Robinson, my man Brian Westhoff in Prince William, Jason from Loudoun County does a good job, and then you got the Stephen A. Smith of Virginia football. We got Jay Golson. So these guys have done a really good job of covering, especially the football season, but sports in general. They talk a little bit too much about Virginia Tech football, as Dwight does as well. But anyway, Kirk, why don't you go first? Tell us how, a little bit about yourself, how you got into sports and how you got into podcasting.
Yeah, thank you, Julian. It's nice to be on here. I want to say our next episode is going to be with the Rivals.com UVA reporter, Jacqueline, and she's going to be on. So,
cool.
So it won't be about Virginia Tech football. We'll probably talk
equal time.
Yeah. So I grew up in Hampton. Grew up downtown Hampton, Old Town Apartments. Was zoned for Phoebus. Phoebus is the newest school in Hampton. It's always been a sports crazy area, and high school football down there is huge because there's no major league sports. It's the largest market in the United States without a major league team, and I think basketball will be the first. I don't think it'll be football, but just grew up. Everybody idolized the Hampton Crabbers. So once the season was over, everybody's rooting for Hampton. Hampton predated. Even before integration, they were very good in the 50s. James Suey Eason. James Eason was the mayor, played at North Carolina, played running back with Dave Brain, former athletic director of Virginia Tech. His son is my fraternity brother. So it's got a deep history. And went to Virginia Tech and came to Northern Virginia in 91. And people had told me that I needed to do something like a podcast a long time ago because I have kind of like a Rain Man brain for facts and figures. So, so a lot of times people will be like, "Who's this guy?" And boom, I can hit it, especially with music and movies also. But so Rusty, I started my own. Yeah, so I started my own podcast and was flying solo. And quite honestly, that's just too much work. So Rusty and I talked. Rusty contacted me about doing a weekly check-in with a group, and then we just came up with it. Didn't give it a lot of thought, and the rest is history. So have a lot of fun. That's the biggest thing. You got to have fun, and if you're not having fun, it's not worth it. And this is what we do all the time. I've seen Larry. You guys, we talk. I saw Dwight at a basketball game a couple weeks ago. We're talking just like this. So the great thing is that we hone in on some subjects where you do not get a lot of commentary. So that's what I like to do. So
yeah,
it's
I think you guys do a good job. You guys do a good job just getting people to act silly and have fun, and not just the sports. You kind of take them out of that, and it's a lot of fun. How about you, Rusty? Now Rusty, you really, I really think you've together, you guys have really done a good job with the football, and just you guys have really put yourself right in the middle of these big matchups, and it made the season that much more fun.
Yeah. Thanks, Julian, and I appreciate you having us on, man. And I love what you do, just like everybody else on this panel. So as much of this as we can get done, because I learned a lot just watching your show, back in especially the COVID time. It's like, hey, this is some interesting stuff, man. And you got like we get like if this was Hollywood, we'd get the B-level people. Not you, Vic, but everybody else is kind of B-level. When you coming in with all these Hall of Famers, big time folks, man, I'm like, oh snap.
You know what though? That's not fair, Rusty. You could take Jay Golson and get more views than I get with Grant Hill, and Larry can too. I mean, Jay Golson and Grant Hill, and you guys get more views. I was like, what?
but you know that's part of how we got started. So my background is very similar to Kirk. Grew up in Hampton in the 70s and 80s, and high school football was like I liked some of the professional teams, but for me, sports was the local teams in the CIAA. You know, my parents went to Norfolk State and Virginia State, and I was going to every homecoming, you know, and so whether it was football, and I joke about this. My parents, Black educators in Hampton City and Newport News City schools, but we would go to the CIAA tournament, you know, and they would bring me along, and that was that week of school. None of your African American teachers were in because they was at the CIAA tournament, especially if it was at the Scope. You would see your coaches and your teachers. And my parents were both teachers, so they went to school with all these folks. And man, it was nothing but a celebration. And it still continues to be that with the CIAA tournament. But being around those type of sports were you know, impacted my life, man. You know, Vic talks about like I don't even know if kids today just play pick-up football or pick up basketball. It's organized, it's leagues and stuff. But like I have a nephew and I'm like, even my son who played high school football and youth, they didn't play a lot of just pick up games. We used to go neighborhood to neighborhood and play football. And I look back, man, I know I was a little nervous to play like youth football. Well, I wanted to play youth football, but like high school football, can I play? And people were like, are you crazy? Like, you're like, dude, you can play. You're dominating youth football and you're playing with all the big kids now. And I was like, yeah, but at that high school, man, it's the Inco brothers and it's Terrell Britt and Dee Van, guys I was looking up to. But those are the things influenced me. And I had a decent time playing sports at all levels. That's where I developed a lot of my friendships and connections. You know, we've had a lot of great guests, but a lot of them are just childhood friends, or you know somebody to know somebody. Like I might call Vic and he might get me in contact with somebody. Larry has definitely hooked us up with some folks. And that's kind of what the show came from. And like Kirk said, we basically developed the show around guys, what we would be doing. If I didn't know you, Julian, and I actually have known you for over 20 years because we roughed together. I didn't realize when we reconnected, but
I had hair.
If not, right, we had hair, yeah. But Julian, I don't have to know you. I could sit beside you at a basketball game. We would start talking, maybe, and you might mention you went to UVA. Oh, you know Jason Wallace, or you know this person, and then, we're just talking about the sports and maybe the officiating, how it came up. And that's some great fellowship. That's what I've done, and that's what we wanted our show to be, because I'm not a professional journalist. I don't even pretend to be. But I love sports, and that's what we wanted to be able to do. And the last thing I'd say is, you know, when I was a kid, man, I couldn't, if I played a football game on a Friday or a Saturday, I couldn't wait to see the paper the next day, to see the results of all, there was no internet, the results of all the local teams in the state, but just to see if my name was in there. You know, or see a picture. I'll never forget one day I was going to school and everybody's like, oh man, did you see your picture in the paper? And I was like, what? They were like, yeah, it was the Hampton Bethel game. And they got you on the front page, not the sports, of the entire paper. And it's like a bunch of Hampton Crabbers tackling you. And I immediately left school and went and bought a whole bunch of papers because it was on the front page, so it was in color. And I still joke about that to this day. It's like, it's me. We lost to Hampton. It was a very close game. They went on to win the state championship. But it's me and about 6 Crabbers tackling me. And the story from their end is they're doing a great job of gang tackling. And my end, it was like it took 6 crabbers to bring me down. So you know, I won't talk too much longer, but that's kind of where it came from. And then the last thing I'll say is this: I have always like just love sports, so I'm reading it, but I've been in the podcast for years, and I just think it's a great forum to be able to do what we do. I remember trying when the Sports Junkies came out about 20 some years ago, 25 years ago. I was like, that's so cool what they're doing. They're just talking about sports, especially local sports at the time. And I remember trying to start something, a radio show with some friends talking about sports. And those same people said, man, Rusty, you should do this for a living. But there was no format really to do it. And so podcasts have just been a blessing. And unfortunately, like COVID kind of gave a lot of us this opportunity because of Zoom and you know, being able to work and relate, because I didn't have a studio, I didn't have cameramen, I didn't have all those things. And so we were blessed to have Zoom. And I'm sorry for going on and on, but that's my story.
No, that was great. And you know, Zoom, someone once asked me if I wanted to use their studio. I'm like, that sounds like work. I could just fire up a Zoom and we're done. And in terms of local sports, I think Kirk and Byrd and the Prince William group is a model of how you cover local sports. Now, I think there's more information that you guys provide, you know, than the paper used to provide, and it's real time. Absolutely. So it's been great to watch it. Most of the time, I was frustrated because Freedom was scoring too many points and Jay Golson was talking too much trash. But anyway, let's go to my man Dwight Vick next. Dwight, he has a show, but also a movement, Vicktory Life. He's going to tell us more about that. I know Dwight played football at Tech. He's a cousin of Mike Vick, the other Vick. He's got a lovely wife and a son who's a great player for Patriot, Isaiah Vick. Watch this kid. He's a silky smooth 6'6", 6'7" post player, 4'5". But Dwight's shows are very well produced. Highlights in there. He's got great graphics. That's just a super job. You can tell he's from the media business. So I put a lot of pressure on you, Dwight. I really sold you now, but what don't you tell us about yourself, Dwight?
You know what, man? Julian, I share Rusty's sentiments. Thank you for having me on. Sure. Like I mentioned before we hit record, I was watching your stuff right 3 years ago as my son was a freshman, and I just went to your page and started watching all those stuff. And I love the history of Virginia, DC, and Maryland, and I love sports. I'm a conversationalist, so for me, it's great to see other people. As I've told Larry, man, it's enough mics for everybody to speak. You know, I started the Vicktory Life movement in 2017, 2018. And it was just more so, it's my practice. So I have Vicktory Life Youth Sports Organization, which is my 501c3. That's my AAU organization. That's only a few years old. And then I have Vicktory Life, which is my business because I'm a licensed therapist. So I help families all across Northern Virginia. I've been in the mental health, family counseling, mentoring business for 22 years. I come from a helping family where my mom and dad are both, my mom an educator and my dad has his PhD and he's a minister. So I grew up speaking and talking in front of crowds and things like that. I love the story of people. So you have the Vic 757 show talking all things tech with me and my cousin Mike. That's a seasonal podcast. Then you have the Vicktory Life Legacy podcast, which is my co-host Danny Noakes. And Danny Noakes, he works on 106.7 The Fan DC on evenings, nights, and weekends. And I have my baby, my favorite, which is a Vicktory Life Legacy podcast. The premise of that came from right around COVID. You know, for years leading up to COVID, I did broadcasting. I did the spring game, 2013 spring game. I did a color commentating. I used to write a column for Rivals. And then I went to 247. It was called Vic's Viewpoints. And I hated the media when I was a player because I felt like they always had an agenda and they always said what they wanted to. They had narratives. And the next thing you know, my wife was trying to get me to do coaching. I had offers to coach high school basketball and football, and I had offers to coach college. My wife really wanted me to do it, but I felt like coaching is a job you have to have a passion for. I coached 1 year high school football in 2008 at Parkview when Andy Hill was the coach. That's when I got introduced to how hard it was to coach on any level. And then, you know, I did other stuff, you know, as far as, you know, radio. I did the pregame show for Virginia Tech before Bill Roth and Mike Burnham came on. And also I've been in documentaries, most recently for Frank Beamer on ESPN, ACC network. So I'm used to being in front of the camera, but I never feel like I'm better than anybody. I just love the story of other people, and I love to storytell. So when COVID happened, my good friend, the head coach of Osborne High School, Rocky Carter, invited me. I was the only non-high school coach, and it was some heavy hitters on there, Northern Virginia coaches. Rocky invited me on. He loves to hear me talk, and we have great conversations. So that's when I met my guy. But I met Keith Honore, I met Doug Craig, I met my guy, the head coach at South County. Sherman was on there, and the guy, the head coach at Gainesville High School. So we're in this Zoom with all these guys, Greg Doyle, all these great Northern Virginia coaches, guys from all over Fairfax and Prince William. And we did a weekly Zoom to talk about high school issues, social injustices. It was started by Rocky Carter. And I'm in here and I'm like, man, at first I was kind of like, I'm not going to say much, but that's not me. So I started talking to all those guys. I started talking to all these coaches, just picking their brain. And Tony Bentley, my gosh, shout out to Tony Bentley. And I was like,
Oh yeah,
man, I just thought these guys were so great. So then at the same time, I was part of a Friday night happy hour with guys like Damon Bako, Tony Rutland, all these guys that I played football with or against and basketball from the Peninsula District. And we would just get on there because you couldn't go anywhere because of COVID. And then one day, I still worked during the pandemic. One day I was driving to see a client because I still worked even in 2020. I just masked up and put gloves on. And I said, you know what? I got to get these stories on video. So I just started, I was like, let me just start interviewing people. So I got first guest was Willie Powell, great
Willie?
safety.
Yeah, Willie.
Willie, they were the very first legacy pod spotlight. It was
He's a great interview.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
It was Willie Powell and Andre Davis. And I got them on and it did. I put it on Facebook and I got a bunch of views. And then my wife, it always helps to have a great wife. She said, you need to do a YouTube channel. So my next interview, I did Damon Bako and Tony Rutland, two of the best VHS players of all time. So all of a sudden, people are just hitting me up, texting me, hey, you got to do this person, do this person. That was so good. And then I started getting Marseille Brown. Then I got cancer survivors, superintendents, Doug Craig, Tony Bentley, Sherman Rivers. I just got people I wanted to hear about, women coaches, Shonda Bailey at Hampton High School. And it just really took off along with, the Vicktory Life shirts, the hoodies and T-shirts. I'm not a fashion mogul, but I think people like the movement because it's about positivity and unity. It's about uplifting people. I am a fan of everyone on here. I'm going, so like I will share stuff, promote it. So Vicktory Life is about sharing the stories. Like my favorite player growing up was Grant Hill. I was a Detroit Pistons fan and a Duke fan because of Grant Hill. I thought Grant Hill was one of the best players I've ever seen in my life. So I remember seeing him on your stuff, Julian. That's why I was like, oh my God, like I get inspired. See, some guys see people like y'all and they be like, oh man, they did this or they trying to be like me. I'm like, nah, man, like I love their story. I want to hear more about it because I've been very, very successful most of my life, but I walk in humility because I've been blessed to do so. So Vicktory Life and all the different things that I do, Rusty gives me a hard time joking me, but I am just as humble as the next man. Like when I played, I was an animal. I talked my trash, but I mean, now I'm a father of three, a husband, a mentor, a therapist, and Vicktory Life, man, I just appreciate all the views and support. And by the way, I've had Terry Kirby on.
That was a good one.
I've had Dwight Holly from UC. I've had Robert Hunt, who played at UVA, and I've had some other, and that's the one thing I've told Rusty and Kirk this, man. Like when you have a podcast, especially the platform I have, people love it, but then all of a sudden, once you start to grow, people start DMing you, say, you know what, man, you need to interview this person, or you got too many of these people. Like, man, listen, I'm doing the best I can. I don't even really get this is not something I get like, calls from the president about. This is just stuff I do because I want you guys to hear these stories of these amazing people. And that's what it really comes down to, man. Like, that's why sometimes I show old videos, Julian, of like I said, Tony Bentley, man, like he got emotional on my show. Like, cause I asked him about his best team he ever coached. And he got choked up. And he hit me later. He was like, man, I really enjoyed. He sent me a thank you card, but then he was like, people are joking me. I've had Bud Foster. He got choked up on mine, but I don't do it with that intention. I just want people to feel comfortable. Like Rusty said, like if me and Larry are at a state championship game and it's timeout, it's halftime, sometimes I'll start talking so much, the game's going on and I'm doing this. But anyway, man, that's the Vicktory Life movement. Those are my shows, and I'm always involved in something. And if I'm not doing the shows, I'm saving lives. I'm dealing with people with depression, bipolar mood disorder, schizophrenia. I'm helping families in need all across Northern Virginia. Vicktory Life is licensed and contracted in Fairfax, Fauquier, and Prince William County.
That's beautiful.
Hey, I just got to say something.
Yeah.
Before we get to I just want to. Vic is very humble, and I'm telling y'all, he is a baller, in every way as an athlete and a professional journalist. But he is down just straight up legit a great dude, man. Before I knew him personally, like my brother always talked to my brother. Was like, "Hey, I got this guy that to play the tech, and I kind of mentor him." And it's all just legit. Like my brother was like, he is my brother. He's a good dude, but also like when it comes to Vic, like he's like. He has mentored my son. Okay.
Oh, wow. That's awesome.
Like personable. He like, I was in so I'll just say I was in Big Brothers, Big Sisters for years. And even if you have a father, sometimes it's good to have somebody outside the family that can talk to and mentor. And he did and still does a great job, with my son. And so I just want to say, man, like dude is legit. Vicktory Life is legit, man. And, he talks about my brother mentoring him, but I will say this. Vic had my brother on his show before I had my brother on my show.
Wow, that's cool. Yeah. Hey,
well, his niece is a famous tennis player, and Melendez, his brother, was supposed to come on, and then he came on the show I do with Mike, and it was a great show. Yeah.
Well, Vic, Dwight, you have a great show. Love your show. Love your interviews. I'm like the Jerry Maguire line from Roy Firestone. You're not going to make me cry tonight, Roy. You're not going to make me cry tonight. But let me get to my main man, Larry Merritte, who's he's taking the RVA by storm. Larry, just like the Hilliard Kirk Effect and Dwight's podcast, and then Kirk and Byrd during the lockdown, you started to see these local sports interviews start, and Larry came right about the same time. I saw some of his earliest interviews. And I actually met him for the first time on your show, on the Kirk and Byrd Show. And Larry and I have been in touch ever since. And it's funny, he's had a couple partners in his podcasting and, did some great work together. But he really has caught his momentum now. He got together with Morrisette Media, unbelievable production team. Larry brings people into his home. He owns the set. It's really a part of the Richmond community now. Just done an amazing job. And, he's got, I don't think it's a secret now because you were teasing it last week. Like he's got Armando Baycott getting ready to come on soon. So hopefully you guys all tune into that and others. But so Larry, why don't you go next and tell us how you fill in the blanks, things I may have missed there.
Oh, you was on point, man. Thank you for having me. I'm not really a person like to be in the spotlight. So, but I talk my trash though. No, really, it just became a part of what we were just like messing around. It was like my son, a couple of friends of mine that I used to work with, and another guy that I first started with doing a podcast. Now he has his own podcast. So we were just like doing like really like text messaging. So I was just like, man, we send the price, let's just do a podcast or something, because it was over COVID. So nobody wanted to do it, except for the guy Wooby. And, me and him was like, you know what? Let's go ahead and do it. My son didn't want to do it. The friends didn't want to do it. I was just like, let's do something. So by Wooby being in 757, me being here, 804, we was like, man, collectively, man, we could just kind of kill two birds with one stone, have them on one show. Me not being in the media, he's a media guy, was like, okay, well, let's just do it, so I'm gonna follow his lead. And so we did it for, I think we started, I want to say maybe August or something, because Dwight was our first guest.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, Dwight was our first guest, and they never got aired. But it was, but me and Dwight had to talk about that. But no, he was our first guest, and then because if you go out on YouTube, you see Boo Williams, but Boo Williams was not our first guest. It was Dwight, because like I said, Dwight was doing it way before any of us. So I was like, man, let's get him on, and like I said, and build up from there. So then, I want to say June of 2021. Me and Wooby decided to go out different ways of just having some differences of where we wanted the show to go. And he decided to do his own thing. And I wasn't going to do it anymore. And this is the first time I actually talked candid, openly about it. So I had people was like, no, you need to keep doing. You need to keep doing. You need to keep doing. I was like, no, I'm done. That's, but no, a lot of stuff. I was like, no, not really knowing what to do. So when I saw that he started his podcast, which was Real to Real, I was like, man, okay, he got who he wanted. So he got Nancy Lieberman. So at that point, my pride kicked in. I'm not gonna lie. I was like, wait a minute. Okay, so now it's gonna look like that he was the guy, and me being who I am, pride forgot. Like, no. So I was actually in a store, and I met someone from Atlanta, and they was like selling clothes or something. So they was like, I told them I do a podcast. And what she did was, this lady, she was like, hey, have you met these guys right here? I was like, nah. So it was the Morrisette Media team, but they hadn't done any podcasts. They were getting ready to come out with podcasts. And they was like trying to recruit people to do it. So I was like, nah, I'm not going to do it. I'm just not really messing with it. No, I'm just, let you guys have it, watching Julian. So before that, what I ended up doing, I seen Kirk Byrd. So when they was doing it, I called them up. I hit them up on email, or I think it might have been a text or something. I'm not sure how I remember. But I talked to Rusty for about an hour.
I was just saying it was at least an hour.
Yeah. So when I talked to Rusty, at that point, I was like, well, let me go out here by myself to see if I really want to do it. And if I want to do it, if I do well on here, then I would consider doing a podcast. So what ended up happening is I have a team of 4. I have 2 men, 2 women. If you go back to the Motown days with Berry Gordy always had a team. And he said, hey, is this a hit or this is not a hit? How many of y'all think this is a hit? Raise your hand.
Yeah.
So I used to always have that with Wooby. But that's how a lot of times you can determine what stuff to put out, what direction to go, which, everything was good, but they kept saying, you need to talk more. So Kirk and Byrd actually gave me my first shot, if you really want me to be honest. I have to thank them. Maybe, I don't know if they know it or not, but they gave me my first opportunity and that's where you saw me, Julian.
Yeah.
I was nervous. I was like, man, I don't know what I'm gonna do with this. So after that, the team was like, no, you need to do it. You need to do it. You need to go ahead and do it. So I ended up finding out the Morrisette Media team. And driven by my personal pride, and hatred and anger and frustration, I decided to come out to bring BallinVA back out. But I wanted to send a message to everybody that was out there and let them know I was serious, because we couldn't get any guests. Like, Wooby knew a lot of people. And the guests that we had on the show were mostly his guests. I didn't really know anybody that would really come on, so I have to give him that credit. But it just gave me more time to get comfortable. And then when I came up with the Morrisette Media team, it was like, look, man, we like what you do. We seen what you did, on the shows. And it was like, hey, you can get you roll with us, you can get anybody who you want, but you got to be good. and the rest is history. And I came out May of 2022, so I'm the rookie here of this panel, and it's took off surprisingly. Don't have a media background, which is something that I love sports, and I watched all of you guys, and I thank you guys for Dwight coming on my show. And again, I owe you one because it never got aired. Rusty and Kirk for giving me an opportunity to showcase who I was. And now I would say probably the hottest podcast that I got right now, that's out right now, just how fast it's growing and the guests that I've had. But it was mostly driven by this 757-804 thing that me and Dwight always have conversations about, me and Rusty going back and forth, me and Kirk also. And but I like you guys. Actually, I watched all you guys coming to the game, sitting with you guys, learning a lot from you. I learned a lot from you guys, even though y'all probably don't even know it. But I sit back and I watch all of you. Julian, I used to post stuff on my page before it got locked out. And here I am, man. I don't really talk too much about myself, but that's how we got started. And right now, BallinVA, we doing the damn thing. Yeah. And 2023 is going to even be better than 2022. You mark my word.
It's amazing that we all have shows basically talking about sports with local athletes and sometimes more national athletes, but we all have a different interpretation of the same type of show, and it's amazing how it works out. But look, Larry, you teed up the 804-757. I want to get to that, but I want to get to our first award of the night first. For 2022, I want to get Kirk Hilliard back in here, and I want you guys to give me your state or local male athlete of the year. Kirk, I want you to go first, buddy.
Ooh.
Okay. I'm high school is our bread and butter. So I'm going to stick with that because quite frankly, everybody talks about college, the pros, on all that. So I would say I would have to go with a football player. And we've learned that football is king in Virginia. Basketball is a distant second, even though we've got, 5 guys in the Hall of Fame and Boo Williams recognized. But I would say that Jordan Bass of Phoebus, who's going to University of Pittsburgh, just an unbelievable player. And I've seen football players for over 40 years now. He's one of the best I've seen. He's a very nice kid. I'm friends with his dad. Virginia Tech came in second. So with that transfer portal, you never know. Jordan is 6'4". I think he's 210, and he's just unbelievable. He's going to play outside linebacker at the next level, but he just dominates the game. He dominated the games I saw him play in. It was on the receiver side. It was unstoppable. And,
5 touchdowns against Oscar Smith receiving.
And in the state championship against Heritage of Lynchburg, I mean, he was killing them. But and he reminds me a lot of Ronnie Lott, but he's bigger. So I would say he's my male athlete of the year. But one thing I would say is that in this world of social media, and we're probably going to touch on this, is that a lot of times the stars get too much attention, because I was going to say I was very impressed with Tony Rojas of Fairfax.
Absolutely.
Those 2 guys have the NFL written all over them. But I'm going to tell you right now, if you had to bet, and Dwight really knows this, somebody else that nobody's talking about is going to be the best NFL player. Probably not Jordan, probably not Tony Rojas, probably not Alex Birchmeyer. It may be some guy who's going to JUCO. But, Jordan, I'm excited for him. He's not going in the spring. I know some kids are starting. Penn State's got a couple. But Jordan Bass.
I think it's a great pick. Love that coach, Jeremy Blunt, too. I think what an amazing job he's done. Rusty, you want to go next?
Yeah, I have 2 that I actually have a personal connection with, but they're not just great athletes. They're also really good young men. And so I actually have a tie. And both of these young men actually were student athletes with my son last year at Bishop Ireton. They're not there this year, but first is TJ Bush, the defensive player defensive end for Freedom, the team that went 15-0. A lot of people talk about their offense, but that defense was incredible, and he definitely was the leader of that defense, dominating the defensive end. He not only made tackles, but he had a lot of sacks and blocked a lot of punts, safeties, and just brought something that Freedom may not have had in the past. So TJ Bush, he is originally committed to Coastal Carolina, but now he changed and he's going to Liberty. And I think he's comes from a great family. I mean, he's been on our show, but just a really good kid. And so I've got him there. And then I have him split with Jamie Kaiser. Jamie also played with my son at Bishop Ireton, two-sport athlete, incredible 6'6" quarterback, could run, could throw, but also one of the best basketball players in the country. Jamie played at Lake Braddock. He started out in public school playing football and basketball. As a sophomore, averaged, I think, about 28 points a game. And people were saying, oh, you're just doing it in the public school. You can't do it in the Catholic League. So he goes to Bishop Ireton and dominates there. And then he commits. He's going to be he could have played football or basketball, Division I. You could have played football and basketball at the University of Maryland, but he decided to play basketball. And to prove that he's not even just good here, he's now at IMG doing work. So to me, Jamie Kaiser, again, his dad, great families. I used to spend a lot of time, and I still communicate with his family and dad. So those are two of my two athletes of the year.
Yeah, those are two good ones too. No arguments from me on those. Hey, Dwight, you want to go next?
Yeah, man. I'll just, this is when I saw the list, I said, good Lord, these are some great questions. I'll just say, man, Jordan Bass, I think he should be at the top of everyone's list, regardless if you saw him or not. Just looking at his numbers, but seeing him he would get my vote, but just to be a little different, because I think this is a great list of athletes, because there's somebody you always can forget. The guy I'm gonna go with is Jeffrey Overton Jr. I coached against him when he was little, because my son used to play football for the Commonwealth Warriors, and that great youth program with me and the Warriors, they're two of the best in Northern Virginia. And Jeffrey Overton Jr., just his numbers and what he did. Sometimes when you're on a really good basketball team or a really good football team, you know it's expected, or it's almost overshadowed because there's so many names. I saw this when Hampton High in '96, Ronald Curry and them won the national championship. And they had so many weapons. You forget about a guy, or it's taken for granted. But Jeffrey Overton Jr., the numbers he put up, and he's an underclassman. Like, he still has years left. He can catch it out the backfield. He's getting those wheel routes. You can't stop him. He breaks tackles. And I'm glad D1 schools are taking those. I thought his impact in games, especially against Stonebridge and other good opponents, he just set the tone. Like, he just makes plays. And when your uncle is the head coach and was a phenomenal player, and your dad is an outspoken and was also a state champion, a phenomenal player, there's pressure. I'm a Vic, so I can speak on this. When you have expectations and you exceed them or meet them, that's a feat in itself. So he's my guy. And I just want to shout out on your show some other guys I was very impressed with. Sure. Gabe Bixby at Patriot, phenomenal player. I can watch him play all day. Sam Fernandez, 3-sport guy. Last year he was all district and all region in lacrosse, football, not basketball, but he also was a standout player on that 26-1 team. Caleb Woodson is a fierce animal. He's gonna be a beast. I'm a big fan of him. He has the size at Battlefield High School. And then again, another kid I'm really high on, I talked to Lauren Johnson about him, is the quarterback at Highland Springs. He plays basketball too. I think he is a quiet assassin because he just goes about his business. And I just think when it's all said and done, we're going to talk about him not so much this year or next year. When he gets to college, so we're going to look back like, man, he was really good. Larry may know his name. I always forget his name, but that
Christian Martin.
Christian Martin.
I think that's it. Yeah, he's a guy I was very high on. And Rojas at Fairfax was amazing, but respectfully, I only saw him play a couple of times. but I definitely wanted to shout him out too. But my guy, Julian, is Jeffrey Overton Jr. I mean, the numbers are ridiculous, and his impact is immeasurable.
It's like an Eric Dickerson kind of just makes.
Yeah, just smooth, shifty, catch it. He can return kicks. He can run in between tackles, and it
and a really good defensive back too.
Oh,
yes,
yeah. So, all right. Well, thanks, Dwight. All right, Larry. I know you got some picks. I got a feeling this one's coming from Central Virginia.
Yeah, man. I couldn't. First of all, I would say it's a tie for me too, but I'm gonna take my guy over the other guy. But Jordan Bass definitely needs to get some recognition. That kid, man, is phenomenal. So I'm definitely, shout him out first. But I'm gonna go with Harry Dalton, man. What he did at Dinwiddie, man. That kid, man.
Oh,
I mean, you talking about over
Yes.
2,000 yards rushing and passing. And then, with 30 some touchdowns pass, almost 30 touchdowns passing and rushing. Come on, man. That and it's only a 10th grader.
Yeah.
I mean, come on, man. I mean, that's hard to kind of, pass it. I expect that from a senior, but a sophomore.
Larry, I think this is his first year playing quarterback. He played running back as a
Yeah,
freshman.
he played running back last year. Yeah. Yeah.
Amazing.
So, I want to give that guy, some love, man, because those guys all the way down in Dinwiddie, they don't get talked much. It's always the Highland Springs and Veronas up here. But that dude, man, I'm sorry. I'm gonna give Harry Dalton my vote.
Okay.
That's great.
Yeah. Well, since
What about you, Julian?
Yeah, I'm on the clock now. Well, since Kirk picked someone from his old school, and Rusty picked two guys from his son's old school, I'm going to pick someone from my son's old school. His name is Mason Cunningham. He was a wide receiver at Yorktown. He was first team all region in the class of 2022. He was first team all region in football, second team all region in soccer as a midfielder with my son. And they played together for 2 years, and second team all district in basketball. He made all district team in 3 different sports, and went to Hampton, Sydney, and was rookie of the year in the ODAC. So,
Wow.
yeah. So obviously, I got a lot of respect for Jordan Bass and Jeffrey Overton. The quarterback for you was not a bad player. Harry Dalton. I'm sure there's some Highland Springs players we can shout out as well. But I'm going to go with Mason Cunningham.
I like that. That.
Oh, thank you. So
I'll
let's
add
go.
this, Julian. People don't realize how good the ODAC is.
Yeah.
And people don't realize a lot of times how good Division III football is. You've got to be a good football player. And Sam Mills was Division III.
Yeah.
Fletcher, the Redskins linebacker. Yeah, he was John Carroll. So I just want to say, and they're all recruiting now. They have financial aid packages. Hampton City's a great place.
It is, and nowadays, if you go to a Division III school, and if you continue to improve, who knows? You can stay there and keep doing great, or you can try your luck.
With the transfer portal. Division III is looking a lot better, but it also can be like a stepping stone. If you should be at another level, you go there and you can ball out. But it's also, like Kirk said, a lot of really good, because of the transfer portal, a lot of kids that would have been Division II or FCS, they're playing Division III.
Yeah. Well, thanks, Rusty. So, guys, before we get to our the female athlete of the year, let's talk about the 757-804. Now, Prince William, caused by Kirk and Byrd rivalry. So when I was growing up, we never thought about the 757 because they always beat us. So it was a real hard scrabble sports area. The Hampton teams were tough in football, even though Northern Virginia was always good in football. But basketball, we had tough times in the 80s. And it was thought of that we couldn't handle the teams from the 757 and often in Richmond. But I have seen through social media, especially there's quite a rivalry between the 757 and 804, the Richmond area, in football and especially football, but basketball too. But now Prince William, through social media, has jumped into this thing, and I've heard all this talk between Prince William and the Peninsula, especially, but the Hampton Roads. So let's talk a little bit about this rivalry. Again, there's something we never thought about much in Northern Virginia until recently. But who wants to go first? Who has thoughts about?
I'll go next.
I was just saying this. If you talk about the top football teams, okay, Freedom Woodbridge was unbelievable. Everything put in front of them, they were amazing. Hampton Springs, powerhouse, unbelievable football team. Dinwiddie, great team. Phoebus, unbelievable team. Now, for the parents to sit back and talk about hypothetically who would beat who, you didn't play this, we have this, it's a disservice to the kids. Some of it is fun. I understand. I think that all these teams are great teams, and those matchups are probably not going to happen. I'm looking forward to next year when I think Hampton Springs and Freedom Woodbridge, both teams have a lot coming back, and in 6 should see each other. But I would say that, as far as the 757, which was 804 and 703, I was 703, my Blacksburg number. But no 757 yet. It was a long distance call to Norfolk to call on the radio. But so it's top heavy. So the Hampton Roads Tidewater, older people call it Tidewater. It's top heavy. You've got Chris Hamburger, Dwight Stevenson, two guys from the same high school. By the way, very close in time. That's pretty unbelievable. Wow. And then you look at all the other marquee players, Lawrence Taylor, Allen Iverson, a lot of personalities there too. So it is top heavy. But I would say overall, that's yesteryear. That's yesteryear. They haven't had a major basketball player come out of there in a very long time because private school. Kids are going to private school. So I think the younger generation don't get caught up in as much. I do hear some players up here talk about teams from down south, Richmond or Hampton Roads. But simply put, in the state, this area is exploding, and it's over the whole country. Prince William, Loudon. So this area is becoming very, very, very big. And it's, Prince William has a lot of room to grow, and Loudon has a lot of room to grow. So as it evolves, the way that the schools are in football as well as basketball, you're going to have a lot of the teams up here. So you're going to have multiple regions. And, I don't know that Hampton Roads will see that, but, sometimes I like to talk a little trash,
I think Leroy Keys was also from the Hampton Roads.
Did he go to Huntington or did he go to?
He went to Huntington. He went to Huntington, and he also went to Purdue.
Yep.
Purdue.
So he was the third pick in the draft. He just passed away last year. Went to Purdue, and this was. And by the way, Hampton would not have owned the PD if the schools were integrated.
Right.
So, and I'll end with this. Newport News High School did great in basketball. Hampton ruled in football. So always a basketball. And then, I would end with this. Richmond as a basketball school, just is phenomenal. Bob Dandridge is in the NBA Hall of Fame. And great players. They've got a better college tradition in Richmond. So, and people in the Southwest Virginia, a lot of great players from down there.
I'm glad you. Hey, Kirk, we're talking about integration real fast. One quick integration story that I think is kind of funny, even though it's not a laughing matter of the subject. I guess Warwick used to be called the Farmers. And when they integrated schools, the brother was like, no. We are not going to be called the Farmers. We're going to change this name. And that's how Warwick became, what's the name? What's
the Raiders.
That's how they became the Raiders. One of the sports reporters from in the Hampton site, you guys know him. He's a big name down there. He told me that story. So who's next? Dwight, go ahead.
So, I've been outspoken about this. Larry's heard me on Twitter Spaces, man, and I surprise people because I grew up in Newport News, Eastern Newport News, lived in Randolph Project, Stewart Garden, then we moved to Shell Road in Hampton. So ended my years in Hampton living in Azalea Gardens, which was a nice neighborhood compared to Shell Road. But I rep the 7-5, and the Peninsula District historically still is the standard when it comes to state football and basketball championships. But the problem I have is that I think a lot of people are still in 13th grade, and they refuse. It's almost like gangland. Like, I remember being in the 90s at Virginia Tech when I was in my 20s, when I was young, I was mature, but some stuff we argued about hip hop, East Coast versus West Coast, Florida versus Virginia, Northern Virginia. We thought was soft, and you guys are Carlton Banks, and all this other stuff. Hillary, whatever. And then I realized I was like, you start to travel the state, and you start to grow up, and you see Maryland, D.C., North Carolina, Georgia. You start to travel. I played against Clemson. I played against Miami. And Lauren Johnson and I are very close. I spent time in Miami, and you realize it's about growth and evolution. The thing that bothers me, that embarrassed me about the Peninsula District and really Tidewater in general, is that historically, yes, the records are there, the athletes are there, even the entertainers and musicians. But from a standard of evolution, I'll just stick with the Peninsula District. We have not had a new high school built in almost 40 years in Hampton.
Really? Wow.
Yes. If Phoebus is the newest school, which almost 5 years ago almost closed because of enrollment.
Yep.
So what has happened is, in my day, in the 90s, York County, Gloucester, and even some parts of Chesapeake, nobody was moving to. You fast forward now, Lafayette, York County, Fort Hill, all that's growing, because if you don't have jobs and you don't have job markets and the economy is not evolving, then you are now becoming stagnant and complacent. So what you see now is a lot of history, and you see a lot of men on these group chats that are in 13th grade that are holding on to stuff from 98 and 2002.
Thank you, Lord.
The reality is that Loudoun County, Southwest Virginia, the 804, and specifically Prince William is boomed in growth, which means the D'Angelo Halls, the Dwight Vicks, and all the other guys that were great in the 90s and 2000s, their seeds, their children and sons and daughters are growing up where? In Richmond and in Northern Virginia. So that means that cycle that used to be in Hampton is now dead. But you have you have those people holding on. Like, I get text messages, guys get real mad when they hear me talk, but I don't get emotional or irrational when I debate. So they can't do nothing.
Am I going to be allowed to post this in the Hampton group, or am I going to get death threats?
No, we're good. We're good. I don't listen. I will say this. Listen,
and let's smoke.
Make no mistake about it. This is not anything I'm making up. This is true. This is not emotion. A guy came to me in the group, Hampton Roads group. I'm part of setting the standard. Look me up. I was ranked 4th in the nation. I recruited Mike, Sharon Stiff, and guys from the 7572 Virginia Tech from Western Branch. I rep VA though. And my point being is, if you don't know demographics, if you don't know areas and zones and other parts of Virginia, how educated or how aware are you? How can you argue about an area when you've never been in Loudoun or Fairfax County?
Thank you.
This
you are stuck.
No, this is popped into my head. I'm sorry. This is very relevant to what you're talking about. You know how everybody kind of lives vicariously through their kids now, which, whatever. But up here in Northern Virginia, you see a lot of postings of homecomings and stuff, but I have never seen somebody post with their kid where they rent a Lamborghini for prom. Does that happen up here? Because it happens down there.
I mean, that I don't know, Kirk. I think that's just preference, or some culturally. But I just know that for me, I love Jordan Bass. I love what Phoebus did. I love when Kirk and Rusty have my man Anthony on there. Phoebus is killing it. But then when Anthony told me in the group chat that Phoebus has not lost a district game since 2016,
that ain't nothing to brag about.
But yet they want to mock the Peninsula District. I mean, they want to mock Freedom schedule. Peninsula District, like the district where me and Rusty played in, where Eric Hunter and them lost to Bethel, and they got smacked. Like, you just did not run through the Peninsula District. That district has over 28 state champions. So you mock Freedom schedule, but let's be honest. When you hear Hampton played Phoebus the toughest, and they lost 21-0, what kind of schedule is that? So let's stop. But guys are going to do it because for some people, that's all they have. They holding on to that. And it takes a real man or woman to give somebody respect. Highland Springs, and we're going to talk about this, but Highland Springs, Freedom, and other schools, Dinwiddie, were the best in the state, right? And you know what I'm saying? And so really, I don't want to focus on the area code. Let's focus on the talent. We take away from kids when they do that. We take away from their shine when you engage in that rhetoric. Oh, but who do they play? Oh, they're a bunch of white boys. I used to talk just like that in 98,
Yep.
90s. I used to talk just like that until I got eliminated of that ignorance, because I started to go out here and I've been in many camps and I started to talk to people and I started to go to games outside of Mercury Boulevard.
Right.
And that's growth. And some people just don't want to give those other guys credit. And it does bother me, because the moment somebody posts something, they say, well, who would they play? Does scheduling matter? Absolutely. But what Freedom did this year, what Highland Springs and teams like them did, I think it's just really, unfair to them. And then you have Oscar Smith, a hell of a program. Love everything about Oscar Smith. They have been the standard.
They're gonna be fine.
They're going to be fine. But when you talk about, like, I can't say their names, I want to, but I have 3 guys I talked to that played at Oscar Smith. One of them played at Tech. We're in group chats. They're like, we're not that good. They told me, they said, we're not that good. We don't have a quarterback. This is before the 2-0 win over Western Branch. So we all watching the game. Why can't we admit that? No, because it's the ego. It's the ego.
They won't let it go.
They won't let it go. I am embarrassed right now when I look at the Peninsula District. It is embarrassing. It is. And I got people that text me, even our field is embarrassing. And that is an amazing stadium. But the fact all those greats have come from that area, and we are outdated when it comes to stadium and even other stuff like
practice facilities.
And facilities, man. Like I told this, me and Rusty and I'm sorry, Julian, I'm gonna shut up in a second. Rusty and I had a conversation about this. And I said, the last 30 to 40 years, the talent that's come from that area is impeccable. It is unmatched, right? But if you look at Loudoun and Fairfax and Prince William County and even Southwest Virginia, facilities and other resources, they're killing us back home. They're killing us. And that stuff matters to the modern day parent and athlete.
What? It has to.
But they won't let it go. I mean, then you have to consider all those kids that left Nova area that went to DeMatha and some of those other schools up there that 757 refused to give credit for. They refuse to do it. They want to hang on to these greats like LeBron trying to hang on to his hairline. Like, stop it. Like, come on, man. Y'all was yesteryear. And see, they don't want to get into it with me. Because when I started to break it down to them, they run. They go running high. That was the biggest thing with me and my former team, my co-host. He don't know nothing. And I'm sitting up here like, dude, you talking about stuff that happened back in yesteryear. Y'all want to keep bringing up Ronald Curry. Ronald Curry was a great high school player, but beyond that, you really want to go there? You know what I'm saying?
In defense, not to say he was a great, but just because he did not live up to the best ever.
That's what y'all do, though, Kirk. Y'all see, this is what
you're career.
Hold on. Let me get my point. This is what y'all do. See, when y'all defending your own, you guys will sit up here and say, well, because of this. Well, because of this. But then when we say the same thing about our area, y'all will quit.
Well, Larry, I'll say this.
Hold on. Let me get my point out. No. Because this is because y'all famous for doing this stuff. And see, when y'all see, y'all hate to see me coming because y'all know I'm me, Dwight. See, Dwight from down there. See, I ain't from down there, and I ain't scared to challenge y'all. But this is what y'all do. Y'all would defend Ronald Curry or whoever else. And I'm not saying, I'm just using him as an example. When we say, okay, well, Ronald Curry, well, yeah, he did this. We hit at 804, we love him. But when we sit up here and say, well, let's just say Christian Martin, just use him as an example. Man, he was great. But he ain't do what he did. Well, he ain't do this. But y'all be quick to put our stuff down, but y'all want to still hang on to this guy because he was great here. It was some excuse or the reason, but when we do the same thing, y'all would have dismissed it. And it's like, well, we got y'all like the Dallas Cowboy fans. Oh, we got 5 championships and they ain't won us since 95. Stop it. Y'all not going to do that with me because I ain't going to let that happen. Because the fact of the matter is, because I remember Dwight Vick was on Twitter one time and he was like, man, somebody was arguing this 757 stuff. And I said to Dwight, I said, in the last 15 years, we've been kicking y'all butt. You said facts. Yeah. And they don't want to admit it.
Let's get Rusty. Let's get Rusty in. Rusty is a 757 guy we live in Prince William County. So how do you view this?
So I'm a lot like Dwight on this, man. I first let me give a shout out to one of the reasons we blew up, but what you said in terms of 757 Prince William County, a lot of that credit has to go to Jay Golson. When he got on and he started talking that smack, people down there, they got defensive and they didn't understand. So I got to give Jay his props. But just like the white man, when I got on, and we're talking about this medium in terms of podcast, but social media, Facebook, Twitter. Facebook is really where you get a lot of this chatter back and forth because it's interactive. And so whether it's Alex Koo's Prince William County Sports or it's the Hampton Roads high school football site, it's a lot of debate. But like Dwight, I remember, early on when we had our show, I was making a point about some of the quality teams up here, whether it was football or basketball, but especially football. And the dude was like, "You don't know what you're talking about. You're up there in Northern Virginia." And I'm like, dude, I toted the rock in the Peninsula District. I do, I was a part of the historic Hampton Beth rivalry. Like, I know what I'm talking about. I'm keeping it real. Okay, so you can kill all that noise. All right.
Rusty, let them know. Like I'm younger than you, but we played when it was in front of 9,000 and 10,000 people in Dartmouth.
Yes.
Wow.
Like now it's 500 people and a couple of blow pops.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying?
Right, exactly.
Kirk will tell you, when I played in the Hampton Beth game, I played in 4 of them because my 10th grade year we played them twice. The tickets would sell out by Tuesday. You could go to the bank. You had to go to the bank or wherever, the schools, but the tickets were sold out by Tuesday. It was that big of a deal in the stadium that held, up to 8,000-10,000 people, and it would be standing room only. So, but so I have the background and the pedigree. The other thing is, I like most people, man. I love where I'm from, dude. I've rep it big time. But I have lived in different parts of the state. I was at VCU for 4 years, and because I'm a sports fan, I would follow John Marshall, Henrico. I was going to TJ games before Kendrick Warren came to VCU, and we were good friends. But then I lived here in Northern Virginia, and I got a great appreciation for 2 things for sports up here because I've refereed in Cardinal basketball for over 25 years, and then I was following high school sports with my man Jeremiah Davis when I served as his kind of mentor, family friend, and we would do father-son things at his middle school, and then I kind of helped him with and followed him in high school and college at Penn State. And I was watching, and it made me look up the history. And I'll say this: my thought was always, yes, we dominate the state 757, because that was my thought. Oh, and let me
stop you right there. Hold on, let me correct you. Not 757, yes, Hampton. Let's correct that.
Hold on, that's what I was
correct that.
So for a lot of people that don't know, and I've shared this with Dwight and Larry, we say 757 now, but that's new. It was basically the PD, okay? Mm-hmm. And more specifically, the city of Hampton that has 29 football state championships by itself, okay? So I was always PD. Now, the South Side finally won some things. When I was growing up, it was like Hampton was football, Newport News had great basketball programs, and the other side of the water. Like, they were all equal to, like, Newport News to me, because you had the Booker T's and you had Kempsfield, but they didn't win. They had J.R. Reed and Indian River and things like that. But I always carry my pride. But I will say this, and this was a discussion, Larry, I know. This is why I knew you was good people, man. When you called me, we talked more than an hour. It was about an hour, 40 minutes. I know, because I was teleworking and I should have been working. And I was, but Larry was real with it. Like, I being a lover of high school sports, I'm at the Siegel Center as long as it's been open the last 20 plus years. I'm at the high school state championship games. Julian, as referees, if we're not reffing the games, we're there usually. And it used to be a wonderful thing where you could go for a whole week and watch the semis and all the different levels. But I would sit there, and I have some friends, Anton Price, in fact, a friend of mine from college. We go every year and we sit together, and it's just a great fellowship, you know. And but I remember getting in debates with people from the Richmond area, and I think this was a year when Byrd, or maybe it was when Roselle, when Highland Springs won or something. And I was having this debate. I was like, dude, I love Richmond sports, but y'all ain't really won jack, okay? And I was talking about a 15-year period, and I was on it, and dude got mad. But that was then. If you look at the last 10 to 12 years, 804 has been balling. They've always had the talent, always.
It was coaching.
Especially the basketball, but the football too. And so and Larry and I talked about it, like, I got to give 804 props, like, because they in a lot of ways have bypassed a lot of parts of the state. So I'm going to be real on that. And then the other thing is, Prince William, when me living in Northern Virginia, you know, I will say this. I lived in Alexandria City and I lived in Fairfax County. But then my wife and I, we came out here when we decided to get a single family home. But we did look at neighborhoods. And I said, where do these kids, this before I had a kid, where do these kids go to high school? And they said, these kids are zoned for Hilton. And Hilton was winning state championships. In football. And it's a little thing, man, but it makes a difference. You know, like, I knew they were good and I was going to be there. And so, you know, they built more schools since then. But those are the type of things, man, when it comes to sports, I learned that, one, I've always said, 757 plays good football, but Northern Virginia balls. Like, you can, and see, what a lot of people don't do is understand Northern Virginia is not just Fairfax. No. It's also Prince William County and Loudoun County and the city of Alexandria and Falls Church and Arlington. And, you know, unfortunately, some of our people back home, they just think Northern Virginia is maybe just Fairfax City because they don't know, you know. And so I would say this, I think legitimately when we talk about football, Northern Virginia has always been able to hang. Now Richmond is definitely there. But I do think legitimately over the last 40 years, basketball, Northern Virginia wasn't quite there. But what I'll say is this, your last state champion in Fairfax was Lee in 1981. But Prince William County, they if you lump them in, Potomac won in 95 and TC won in 08 against my Bruins. But that was a, you know, almost 30-year drought of not winning a basketball state championship. But let me just say this, folks. It's not because there isn't talent in Northern Virginia. It was hit on earlier. It's a lot of private schools up here. And some of those greater players left and went to O'Connell, you know,
St. Stephen's,
Paul the Sixth.
And in 757, they want the excuses for why they don't achieve it, but they would not give these things. If you look at some of those great players out of Northern Virginia, and you look at the All-Met teams, look at all those All-Met teams from the 80s into the 90s. They would show you the reason why that Northern Virginia did not win. Just like if you look at Hampton, if it weren't for the military and all those great players that came in, which Hampton, with the 757 people refused to say, hey, these people ain't all grew up here. They came in through the military, but they don't want to talk about that. See, here I think the military thing plays a part, but it's not so much for the peninsula, because for the 70s, 80s, and 90s, those guys were from Phoebus, Shell Road, and Newport News. I know what you're talking about, Larry. That emergence with the military had a positive impact on Ocean Lakes and the Virginia Beach. And right, but you look at some people like Lakeisha Frett. She's not from 757. She's from Texas. She's from Texas. She moved there. Right, but that's what I'm saying. But a lot of your great players did move there, but they don't want to talk about that.
Let me just say this. The way you're talking about the military, I agree. But the thing I think that was key to some of our success in Hampton, Newport News, is the shipyard. Like, those were jobs.
Right.
People came
Right.
from Surrey County, Smithfield, even the other
Right.
side of the water, Richmond, Williamsburg, to work at the shipyard. And
Absolutely.
that is what caused a big growth.
I'm
Yeah,
just
but
gonna
see,
land
we
my, I'm gonna land my
could.
plane with this. I'm gonna land my plane with this, man. And I know we got other topics. I just think, I used to engage in that. You never really gonna see me doing it because I think it's childish. And I think and maybe because I am in the media and I cover so much from college to pro, and I'm on radio shows. I'm on 106.7 The Fan and Big Dog Sports Radio. I have a certain ethical responsibility to be non-biased, and I take pride in that. And I think, yeah, when I was in my 20s and even my late 20s, I'll be like, oh, y'all soft, y'all can't see us. And I just think, man, if you cover this thing and you really go to games, like before I had a son and my daughters, I was going to games in Northern Virginia. I was driving down to Churchland and Tidewater to see State play. I was going to VCU when Byrd played Bethel and my man Troy Mansden won. I didn't even have a kid playing. So you get a broader perspective. I just think there's some people respectfully that need to grow up when it comes to respecting someone's state championship. I just think you poo-poo it when you talk about what they didn't do when they won it. Because one of my biggest regrets is I never got one. And I played on some of the best teams in the history of VHS. I lost to Iverson in both football and basketball. And my freshman year in football, we lost to Garfield, first ever state championship at Darling Stadium. My junior year, Bethel won it, as I mentioned. My senior year, Norcom from Portsmouth won it. And that's when they closed Manor and another high school, and they all went to Norcom, and they beat Langley from Northern Virginia 42-0. But respectfully, I just think that is one of those arguments that will never, you can talk about numbers, but I think sometimes it also goes in cycles. So I just think we take away from the accomplishments of high school kids in all sports when we talk about like an area being terrible. Was there a dominance? Yes, but I just think that is not the case. Virginia has improved.
I will not go. I just say this: the South Side of Virginia has got a rich tradition of athletes. Two brothers drafted in the first round ever are out of Danville, Terrell and Tremaine Edmonds, and then Martinsville has produced Jesse Penn, Sean Moore, Bassett right beside there, Maurice so, and just that we haven't talked about that. There's a lot of tradition down there, a lot of great athletes.
Jeff Adkins, I mean, Martinsville had so many, Tony Dallas, so many great players. I was going to say the
JJ Reddick.
Yeah, that's exactly. The Roanoke area. Roanoke area is also a great area. The reason why Northern Virginia struggled in basketball is you have to remember we only had one urban school. So obviously after integration, the urban schools dominated basketball. We only really had TC Williams. To some degree, we had Mount Vernon and then West Potomac. Slowly, the other schools became diverse. But TC Williams was undefeated. Was an undefeated state champ in 1977. Mount Vernon won in 79. And then in the early 80s, Richmond, they combined the schools in the inner city and they created Armstrong Kennedy, Jefferson Huguenot with nobody was beating those schools. They won three straight state titles. So Marshall Walker won 2 and Jefferson Huguenot with won 1. But then afterwards, you have to remember we started getting more diversity in the outer parts of Fairfax County. Obviously in Prince William County as well. So I think we cut the gap, but then the private schools started bleeding our talent. And that definitely took away from some of our talent. But I think Martinsville is a very urban area, even though it's a small city. Danville, the Tidewater area, Norfolk, Richmond, we really only had TC Williams and then Mount Vernon. So I think that probably had a little bit of a factor historically. Now let's go to a female athlete of the year. Give them equal time, obviously. Kirk, why don't you start us out with your female athlete of the year?
All right. Away from high school, I bleed orange and maroon. And Elizabeth Kitley, 6'6", power forward center for Virginia Tech. ACC Player of the Year, third team All-American, phenomenal player. She's having a great year this year, 18.3 points a game. She's a preseason Player of the Year. Virginia Tech beat North Carolina. Was that yesterday, Dwight? Wasn't it?
Yes, yesterday? It was yesterday.
We're in the top 10. She's phenomenal. Everybody has really good things to say about her personally also, and it's nice to see someone excel. And it's also nice to see women's basketball at Virginia Tech doing so well. I got some honorable mentions, but I'll leave them there. A lot of high school players. Love softball up here, man. It is really good.
Hey, Kirk, go ahead and read them out and just give them the shout out. You can read them out if you'd like.
Well, there was the soccer player. I don't know the names, but the young lady who from Yorktown who's going to South Carolina.
Yeah, that was my player. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. She was very good. And then Bishop O'Connell had a young lady.
Katie Coots.
In softball. And then upcoming Tamika Dudley's daughter is going to be, has she committed yet? Because she is like top 5.
She's only in 11th grade, but it's
right. She's a junior. Yeah. And
I coached her, for the record, in basketball.
Kiki, the senior, is at UCLA. And then there's a young lady at Heritage High School in Newport News who is a senior this year, was a junior last year, that was the Gatorade Player of the Year. And I will say one thing. Nobody talks about anything when it comes to spring sports because Northern Virginia dominates. I mean, baseball, softball, soccer, both men's and women's, lacrosse, just phenomenal athletes up here. And with Title IX, there's all kinds of money out there for scholarships. So there are some very, very, very good and women's hoops players too. Kara Lawson, some of the Penny that went to Jeb Stewart back.
Penny Moore.
Yeah, Penny Moore. But just so many great players up here.
Kirk, also money's becoming more important in sports because of personal trainers, because of different types of training. So you're going to see the more wealthier areas start dominating in certain sports more and more over time. Larry, why don't you go next with your female athlete of the year?
I got one local, Lainey Grant from James River High School, sophomore, already committed to UNC. Average about close to 30-some points a game, 5 rebounds, 5 assists.
I heard about her a while back. A while back, man. And
yeah, she's no joke. And right now she's out there. James River right now is off to like a 9-0 start right now. They're in Division 6, and I think that's and she's a big reason why. Probably one of the most coolest people that you ever want to meet. I met her at Armando's camp personally, and like I said, that girl, every time you see her on Twitter, she's working. And statewide, I'm gonna go with Kamora Johnson from Stab. I want to say she committed already. I want to say she committed to UVA, I think. If I'm wrong, somebody see this, y'all make sure y'all correct me. But she was a Gatorade State Player of the Year out of Stab. And a lot of times people don't like to include private schools, but I mean they play too, so you got to show them some love.
Absolutely, yeah, that's great, Larry. Rusty, how about you? Who's your female athlete of the year?
One, maybe a little biased because she was on our show, but actually a great player. That is Sarah Jordan, volleyball player from Loudoun County.
I loved her. She had a great personality.
Great personality. I forgot to mention her because I was thinking about her. Sorry about that.
Over 1,000 views on her episode, and she had great personality, and she helped lead them to at least 4 state championships in a row. That's the time she was there, but they won that program has been great, but she graduated and she's now playing volleyball at Townsend, but as soon as she left, they didn't even make states. But Sarah Jordan, my female athlete of the year, along with the Christopher Newport University softball girls. They won the national championship this year. So that's a national champion from our state. And when you talk about great Division III sports, CNU has it in a lot of different areas, basketball, track, even the football team is great, but they won the national championship. And one of the toughest games all year is Virginia Wesleyan. Those girls won 2 state championships in softball over the last 5 years as well.
Russ, you had the coach on your show, I believe, right?
Yeah, the day they won, Christopher Newport won the national championship. We had their coach on.
That was great. Awesome. Yeah, I understand. I had the Virginia Wesleyan girls soccer coach on, and I understand it's a big rivalry, understandably. So, Dwight, how about you? Who's your female athlete of 2022?
the female athletes I like, like they play locally, but I don't know if they're worthy of being player of the year. That's a big statement. So I had to think about, like, when you posed the question, who do I check for? And I always check for, because my wife she's gotten me into women's basketball years ago. And the woman when I'm on right now, she recently got injured, but she had a great career last year, great season. It's Paige Bucher at
Yeah,
UConn.
Page Buckets.
Bucket, yeah. Big fan of hers. I mean, because with me, if for me, I have to want to watch you. Like, you have to make me want to tune in. And I just love her approach to the game. She's just always there. Like, I actually got a chance to meet her. She came up to Alexandria during AAU. We were up at the Alexandria Warehouse District Sports Center right off Route 1 up there where a lot of the teams play. And she came in. She talked to everybody. She was also there with her teammate with the name Foggy.
AZ Fudd.
AZ Fudd, yeah.
Yeah. I'm struggling right now, but yeah,
Right.
she's mine. But I do want to give a shout out to one of my favorite female athletes. She's at Patriot, Sydney Smith. She's not player of the year, but she had a great season last year. She's poised for another one this year. Prince William's got some really good teams. That Gainesville team is really good. Obviously, OP is always loaded. There's a young lady at Brentsville that is killing it. I forgot her name. I wish I
Oh
should have.
yeah,
I saw her play in person against Unity Reed. She is a sharpshooter. But Sydney Smith is at Patriot. She's a senior. She's committed to a school out in Minnesota for a scholarship. She's had a big influence on my son. They're very close. They're cousins. So I'm excited for her.
Yeah. Well, guys, by the way, when we could shine light on private schools, but also Division III schools, like you guys did with the Christopher Newport coach. I've done a lot of Division III girls soccer. I don't get tons of views, but I enjoy it, and it gives those folks chance to shine and to see why they're so successful. So Kirk actually tipped my female athlete of the year, another Yorktown player, Shay Montgomery. She was two-time Gatorade Player of the Year. They won a state championship. She helped take USC to the Final Eight this year. So just had a phenomenal year. Another great athlete. So we'll snake back the other way. Let's do Coach of the Year. Dwight, who's your 2022 Coach of the Year?
Football and bat, or just football?
You're just your Coach of the Year. You can mention two names if you like, but your coach.
Oh man!
Yeah.
Oh man! Man!
Want to go Kirk first? We'll come back around to you, or
No, I'll
okay.
go.
Okay.
Well,
Yeah.
no, go Kirk,
Okay.
because I have my answers. But go ahead, Kirk.
we'll go the same way then.
Yeah, I got to go with Daryl Overton at Freedom Woodbridge. Just a phenomenal job. Great program. They're loaded. They're coming back, and everything that was thrown in front of them, they faced. And they do a lot of good things down there. And I just think that obviously, Lauren Johnson, Jeremy Blunt, Coach Billy Mills, Mickey Thompson had a great year. Some other Warwick had a great year, but I think it's Coach Overton.
Yeah, hard to argue that one. Larry, who do you have for Coach of the Year?
Actually, I got three because I think all of them need some recognition. Of course, Lauren Johnson, man, because what he did, those kids, I talked to Takai Heath, who's going to Virginia Tech, and when he said on the show, resonated with me. He said, man, when you go to Highland Springs, you thinking that you're going to win some championships, and this one was very special to them because they hadn't won. This was the first group, but they hadn't won in a while. Mm-hmm. So the focus that they had with the COVID and everything, and those guys regroup and to come back, man, just seeing how excited Coach Johnson was on the sideline, and I was able to be on the sideline during that Stonebridge game. It showed me a lot, man. That guy, man. Look, I don't even play football anymore, man. But I'm gonna tell you what, yeah, I play for him. Definitely,
Won't you?
Yeah, man, that dude, I would run through a wall for that guy, man. Just his stuff. But I definitely want to shout him out. Next, I want to go with Coach Boom, Kenneth Randolph at Verina, taking over that program from Andrew Lacey and building that program, getting Verina, just sustaining that program, and then elevating it, taking it to another level. And like I said, got Verina back into the conversation, winning the state championship last year. They won the top teams this year. Playing, the schedule that they're playing. I don't think Coach Boom gets enough credit for what he did, and especially the way they beat Kings Fork. Kings Fork was predicted to win last year, and they destroyed them. So I want to shout out Coach Boom. And lastly, this guy doesn't get any credit at all because it's a private school. Coach Sam Mickens, another brother, two-time back-to-back state championships at Trinity Episcopal. They don't get enough credit. And I've seen Coach Mickens build that program up. He's been there since 2007, but I've known him for 10 years. And what he's done, they're winning 2 Division II state championships, 14 and 15, and then had some down years and was able to build it back up by getting players, coaches like Wally Rainier from over UVA, Shed McCall from Byrd, and they won back-to-back state championships. I think they need to be recognized, and I don't think he gets enough credit because he's private.
Right. Okay. That's a great threesome right there. How about you, Rusty? Who's your coach of the year?
My coach of the year is actually a really good friend, family friend. Our daughters were best friends and played youth soccer together. And she was on the show, but Tamika Dudley. Tamika, I remember when Tamika got the head coaching job at Woodbridge, a place where she was a player and a great player. In high school before going to college. And she had played under and coached with George Washington at Woodbridge. But when she took over the program, our daughters were playing travel soccer together, and we would have a lot of time to talk at practices, at games. And I saw her just develop and build that program. Like it was slow the first year or two, but then they took off. And they would get to the state tournament, and then they had to go against those great Colonial Forge teams, or meet somebody like a Cosby, and they would always just miss it. But then in 2019, she was able to put it all together and win the state championship. And then she left, and now she's at Sidwell Friends. And this past year, led Sidwell Friends to an undefeated season and #1 ranking in the nation, #1 girls team, and she was the national coach of the year in girls high school basketball. So I'm very proud of her. And her daughter, we talked about Kendall. Kendall also won an ESPY a couple of months ago and was on there. So
that's awesome. That's a good pick. Okay, great, Rusty. Dwight, did you arrive at your pick?
No, definitely #1 coach of the year. I got a few. Daryl Overton, because I live in Prince William. I do a lot of work in Prince William and in Northern Virginia, especially at high schools. And he had to overcome a lot more than what it wasn't so much like remember the tightness, but it was a lot of challenges because of where they're located and always being accused. And because before he took over, they were everybody's homecoming game, and they were the laughing stock of Prince William. And he had to build it, and he had to be himself. And that's very hard, especially for Black men. Even though we've come a long way in this country, we still sometimes have to explain ourselves, and we don't always get the benefit of doubt. And he graduates players, they go to the next level, and he's getting a lot of kids off the street on that Route 1 corridor, and they're committed to playing football. Many of them have the aspirations to play in college. And what he did this year was remarkable. I also want to mention, he's my coach here, but I also want to mention Jeremy Blunt. I think, we could talk about how the PD is down. You could talk about whatever, but you can't take away the fact that Phoebus is doing what they can do and what they're supposed to do. And they're dominating. They won another state championship. Phoebus doesn't have the enrollments like a Division 6, Division 5, Division 4 team. They are moving up. But to win again, it's one thing to win one, but to repeat when everyone's gunning for you. And they played Oscar Smith, and they play anybody. Like Phoebus won't duck anybody, and I respect any coach that won't duck anybody. You can't help who you play in the district, but you can have a say-so who you scrimmage and who you play out of conference. And what they did at Phoebus was remarkable. And I also want to add 2 guys, they're basketball coaches, but I just want to give a 2022 Carlos Poindexter to go undefeated in today's game, to go that many games and still be winning this year, and getting guys looks at the next level, and what he's doing at Hayfield is remarkable. To win a state championship, to run the table, and to do that's historic. And he's a great guy. I talk to him all the time when I see him. I text him sometimes. I met him through Coach Sherman, and I love the way he runs his program. They beat John Marshall last year They housed them by 20.
Mhm.
That is not easy. John Marshall has been great for years, and they're great to watch. And they play hard. They embody his staff, and I love what he's doing in Hayfield. And my final guy, this is more of a shout out, but he's always going to be on my Coach of the Year list. You would think I was going to say Lauren Johnson, but I've given him that award too many times. But I'm going to give a guy, and he's always going to be on my list, and that's Sherman Rivers. I know he didn't bring home the chip, but to go 26-1, and more importantly, this is a sentimental pick for me because I've seen what he's done with my son. In 1 year, in 9th grade, my son learned more about basketball. His IQ went through the roof than any other time in his life. And then everything he said that was going to happen with my son and the players he's coached has come to fruition. He told me when my son was going into 10th grade, he could be special. And I believed him, and we did everything he said. So, and if you sit and talk to Sherman, if you watch him coach, similar to what Carlos is doing at Hayfield, similar to what Coach Blunt, Lauren Johnson, and other guys like them, including Daryl Overton, it's not their pregame speeches, it's not their quotes and scriptures, it's not the links they share. It's the fact that their players believe and buy into them on and off the court and on and off the field. There's a father-son mentorship relationship, and they're going to feel that and benefit from that even in 20 years from now. And that's why I love coaches like that. So those are my guys, man.
Well, that's a great bunch, Dwight. I can't argue with none of you guys. You guys have great picks. I want to give them all their props, but I'm going to go with Carlos Poindexter. Again, there's like 5 or 6, 7 or 8 that could be great choices, but Dwight covered most of it. One of the things I like about Carlos is he's keeping kids from the private school. Now, Larry, there's nothing wrong going to private school, but you know we've had this bleeding of talent. Patriot itself has lost so many great players to private schools, and it drives Sherman crazy. And but Sherman's such a good coach, it just doesn't matter. But what Carlos has been able to do is he's getting private school kids to transfer to Hayfield, and he's helping to make it cool to play public school again in Northern Virginia. And you know, he did a phenomenal job. He's a new generation coach. He's not the coaches that we grew up with, like you guys interviewed the Hampton legend a couple times. Mike Smith. He's not the old generation. This is a new generation coach. This is the big brother coach. This is a coach that can inspire, but also can get in your face, but also can play video games with you. But he also gets the kids in the weight room. He's getting the kids in college. He's being honest with them. He can relate to kids the way coaches didn't relate to kids when we were young. It's a new generation coach, and it's fun to see Carlos so successful because he just doesn't fit the paradigm, but he's changing the paradigm. This is what a coach is going to be like in a day of social media, in a day of personal trainers, in a day of Uber parents. So I have a lot of respect for all these coaches. I don't want anyone to be offended because I didn't pick them, but I'm going to go with Carlos. Well, let's keep the momentum going. Let's pick the moment of the year. If you guys had to pick one seminal moment of the year, what would it be? All right, guys, look, I'll go first on the moment of the year because it might inspire you guys some thoughts. Yorktown won a state title in women's and girls soccer, 1-0 to beat Kellum in the state final. And Aminata Davis made a 35-foot goal in the last 5 minutes to win the game, the state championship. She's signed with Brown. She was co-player of the year in the northern region with Shea Montgomery. They're both great players. But that's my moment of the year. She won a state championship on a 35-yard goal. A moment there will never forget. Yeah. So.
Wow. Where was that game?
That was at Freedom South Riding.
Okay, that's
where they had the state championships. Remember, baseball, everything was there.
It was great.
Yeah.
It was awesome. Yeah. It was awesome. Yeah. All right. Who wants to go next?
I can.
Rusty, you ready? All right.
Yeah. Okay. So for my moment of the year, it's actually a part A and a part B. And it was big news around here to me. Was when Virginia Tech fired Fuentes. Virginia Tech, man, my phone was going off. that night we did a show with Marcus Michael and Tony Kennedy, and our views were off the chain, but people were just excited. We didn't know what was coming next, but it just meant that there would be maybe, some hope for the program. And then the second part was the hiring of Brent Pry. Like it was a good choice. I mean, UVA and Virginia Tech were looking to hire and who would go where. And then I think when it all kind of settled, everybody was pleased with the selections. I thought, in fact, that we had on Jeremiah Davis and Victor Jones. Victor Jones played at Virginia Tech and played professional football for the Lions, and Jeremiah Davis, was All-American in high school and played at Penn State. And that show was early in our podcast, and it's still the highest rated with 1,800 views.
That's awesome.
And so those things were like, bam, and everybody had an opinion on it.
Okay, Kirk, this is
in our world.
This is your effect on Rusty. Now, Virginia Tech moments are his moments of the year. This is what this is what you're doing to Rusty here. Okay, just to let you know. Who wants to go next? Dwight, you want to?
I'll go. Yeah, but I thought there was a lot, man. On a local level, man, Freedom scoring 112 points was crazy. I mean, that actually was just crazy in 2022 because I've seen stuff like that, like in the Midwest somewhere. You see something on SportsCenter, but I was at the Patriot game and I was getting alerts, and I started, I'm in all these different group chats, and then I ran to Coach Sherman because it was at Patriot, and we were tripping about it. And I know Sherman was like, "Yeah, good." Like we were laughing, but that was a moment, and there was so many. Also, my cousin Mike, when he got inducted into the Virginia High School Hall of Fame. I mean, I just think Mike is I'm humble. I think it's just who we are, but like he's more laid back than me. And I always get excited and share his stuff because I feel like he is a great person and he's done so much more. And I think sometimes the controversy about what got him in trouble overshadows what he's been doing since he's gotten out. So that was a great moment for me and our family, seeing him get that. Also too, man, I had another one, and it had to do with oh my gosh, I lost it. It was something to do with basketball. Basically, I hate that that's the old age coming in. But it was another great sporting moment. But I'll come back to it. We can come back to it.
We'll come back to it. Larry, want to go in here next, or?
Honestly, I'll be honest with you, man. I really don't have one.
You don't? Okay.
I mean, you guys touched on it.
Okay.
Honestly, I really don't have one.
Okay,
I
no
mean,
problem.
I
got Larry's. I got Larry's.
Yeah, you can take mine.
Hollis Springs and Verona brought basketball gold to the 804.
Yeah.
Huh?
Right.
Yeah, I guess you can do that.
Kurt, what about
That's
you?
a good one.
Who's
That's
your,
a good one.
I would say it was the tournament, the ACC tournament that Virginia Tech won.
Yeah, that was huge.
Oh, great one.
The Duke game, the Clemson game, was in New York, and then they turned around tight with Notre Dame, and then beat North Carolina and Duke. That was clutch. And it's kind of funny that a football school is looking forward to basketball season, but Mike Young's done some great things, and we're playing well now. But that was a lot of fun, that run and making the NCAA tournament. Second, honorable mention would be the Highland Springs Maury final. That was a great game, chess match. You don't need a major recruit. Maury was playing a huge, you guys were there. They were playing a huge mind game, man. A lot of cheap shots, a lot of stuff like that. And they almost got him. Highland Springs stuck it out. Maury got a last chance. It doesn't get much better than that, guys. And I think that cost us we had media passes, but it was like $12, great game.
Yeah. That's awesome.
I'd also like to add Virginia Tech softball was great this year.
And baseball.
Mm-hmm.
Baseball.
All right, I'm good now. So I had to think. So Rusty took one of mine with Brent Pryor, but I also want to add there was a few other great moments of the year for me. Don Staley winning a national championship.
Yes.
I was people that follow me have seen me on different platforms. I grew up a UVA fan before Tech, and I remember watching her and those twins at UVA. They were really, really good, and I was a huge fan of hers. I was a fan of hers, like I was a fan of Grant Hill's, and she was must-see TV. Another great moment, hold on, I had to write it down. Was for me, a moment of clarity was Mike Smith finally retiring, 50 years of coaching. I saw him on Rusty and Byrd Show. That was surreal for me when I look back at who I played for. I played for Mike Smith, who coached 50 years, and then I played for Frank Beamer. So I've had a blessed life when it comes to playing for great coaches. And then, the other one, man, was Serena Williams retiring.
Yeah.
I thought that was a phenomenal moment. I mean, I think we
Did
live
she
in a
really
here and now.
retire?
Yeah, she did. I mean, probably could argue she could have retired before, but just when you take a step back and look at her, and what they did, her and her sisters and their family, how they changed the game is just remarkable. And of course, honorable mention last year was Will Smith's slap.
God,
That
was awful.
probably.
That was an awful moment. It took some of us back generations. All right, let's.
I have one more moment
Yeah.
that I thought that was exciting for me, and this is an 804 thing, but VCU's baseball team was tremendous, winning the Atlantic 10 and making it extremely deep into the college baseball.
Are they
the regional finals? They lost to UNC.
Are they a baseball program, VCU?
Yeah,
it's real good.
It's
real good.
Really good.
So Rusty, there's a soccer player from Hilton High School, Andres Rodriguez, who plays for VCU. You have to see this guy play. He's a tremendous player. He made the Mexican under-23 team, which is huge. I mean, to make a Mexican national team is unbelievable. But this kid he's a really nice kid. I interviewed him right there from Hilton. Just the nicest kid.
He led him to the state championship.
Yeah, let him beat my son's team in the final there. So, well, I used to watch this show when I was young. You guys might be too young, but the McLaughlin Group. And he used to always say predictions. They always had predictions every week. So what are you guys' predictions for 2023? It doesn't have to necessarily be football or basketball, but anything. What are your any predictions that you want to put out there right now? Who wants to go first?
I'll put one out.
Okay.
I'm just being real, and I think this is pretty educated of a prediction. I think Tech and UVA both will have losing records next year, but they both will improve.
There's nowhere to go but up, right, Kirk?
Oh, they are rebuilding, brick by brick. And you can say this with Brent Pryor and his staff, and as Tony Elliott and all those guys too, Higgins and Slade and Clint Centum. There's not a 23 or 24, 24 or 25, because they got it a little late. But 24 and 25, there's no one that they are not all over. Doesn't mean they're going to get them all. But I say one more year of hard lumps for Tech and UVA. And I think, and if they prove me wrong, it'll be great.
Well, your daughter went to UVA, so you got some skin in the game too. So hopefully your prediction's right. Anyone else have any predictions for 2023? Russ.
All right. So it's a Prince William County heavy prediction, but everyone is legit when you look at their history of what they've done over the last couple of years. My first prediction is that Freedom will repeat as a Division VI state champion. They were extremely young, so Prince William's going to get a football state championship on the Division Class 6, but also Brentsville will win the Class 3. Since Phoebus moved out, they will win. Lake Taylor, I don't think they're going to be ready for what Brentsville gives them, especially if Brentsville is at home. And I think Brentsville gets over the hump and wins a state championship. So we got football, Class 3, Class 6. Basketball, I love Patriot to win it all this year, Class 6. They've gotten a loss or two, but I think that's something that they can grow and build on. And I think there's going to be nothing but great things for Patriot basketball. So I see Patriot. Potomac could be right there, but I think it's going to be Patriots year. And the other thing I am predicting is Colgan baseball will win the state championship last year. Over the last 2 years, they've only lost 2 games. And so I would say, I'm sorry, they lost 3. One was in the state final. One was a regular season against Battlefield last year. And then they lost in the state semifinals this past year to Herndon. And then the other one is the Colgan girls soccer team, one of the best in the country, led by Samantha de Guzman, who played with my daughter, traveled with Kendall as well. And just, oh man, it's just a great team. And they were nationally ranked. Several teams from Northern Virginia that had nationally ranked girls soccer teams. And it just, somebody's going to beat somebody. But those, and lastly, OP girls will win state in 2023 as well.
They lost to Patriot first round of the first district.
I know they lost. Yeah,
that was.
I think it will again be Madison, who's rebuilding, but they're just like OP. I think by the end of the year they'll put it together. Great young players, but great coaches as well.
Yeah. Well, Larry actually tells me the 757 might win the girls' state championship in basketball this year. So, Larry, you want to go next, or?
I'm going to say that the state champion in Division 6 girls will come out of the 804.
Yeah, I knew you. Yeah.
Who was that? Manchester.
You could pick anyone.
Yeah.
It could be Manchester. It could be Glen Allen. It could be Thomas Dale. I'm probably going to record saying Thomas Dale.
Okay.
James River. But if I had to pick one, I would probably lean to more Thomas Dale.
Okay.
Anyone else have a prediction for? No predictions.
I can't think of anything.
Okay. So, okay, I'm gonna go for. I'm gonna stay away from basketball because I'm conflicted because I know too many of these coaches. I am gonna predict that Yorktown girls repeat and state championship on girls. They got an incredible team coming back, so they're gonna be really tough to beat. On the boys' side, I'm gonna say our boys team, even though my son has graduated, they're gonna be strong again, and they're gonna be the regional champs again. I'm not too sure about states. In football, Phoebus is gonna repeat in Class 4. Is that right, Dwight?
Division 4.
Yeah. They're gonna is Dinwiddie going to 5 or is Dinwiddie staying in 4?
No, they're staying. They are slated, if they both play well. They will play each other in the semifinals. And by the way, Dinwiddie has to get past a great King George team. So
yeah, those wide receivers didn't graduate.
Oh no.
Okay.
No.
So I think Phoebus is among the best team in the state, and I think they're going to repeat. So those are my predictions. So, well, guys, I think looks like we're running out of gas a little bit. You guys look like I kept you too long, but I just want to say I really appreciate what you guys you doing.
Do
this.
our favorite interview and most challenging.
What's that? Do you want to do? Yep, we have time for one more. Okay.
Yeah.
You didn't do our favorite interview and our most challenging.
We'll make it a two-part question, a three-part question. Interviews the most challenging, interviews that you enjoyed the most, and the third one, who would you interview if you could choose anyone possible in 2023? So you had it's a three-part question. Anyone want to try to tackle it?
Well, since I brought it up, I'll go first.
Okay.
The person that I would love to interview, who I've been trying to get out, just throw it out there, it's been Ronald Curry.
Oh, yeah.
That's a great one.
You said a lot of bad things. You said a lot of bad things about him today. Really.
I didn't say anything bad things. I said factual. No. I know you're playing. I said factual things. There's a difference. Then I would tell Ronald Curry if I was to interview him, I wouldn't change a thing what I said.
Yeah. Okay.
I don't think he's done an interview since when he was at Carolina.
Is that right?
That's okay.
ESPN
This is Larry from BallinVA. I get who I want.
All right.
Go ahead, Larry. Anyone? Well, I'll go next while you guys are waiting. So my toughest interview of the year was with Coach Overton. As you guys know, I had made some comments about them running the score up, and Jay Golson had I don't want to blame Jay. I'm going to own what I said. But Jake Olson has a way of turning things up, and you end up responding and stuff. So the whole controversy, we kept going and going, and Coach got involved. So at some point, Carlos Poindexter and Felix said, Julie, just bring Coach on and interview him. There's no sense you guys having a silly spat. And I called him up. I messaged him as a coach. I'd love to have you on my show. He was a good sport about it, came on the show. And, at first there was definitely a little bit of cold, I don't want to say coldness on his part, but we had to kind of get used to each other. But I thought we had a great dialogue. I have a lot of respect for him now. And I learned something in life. You might not agree with someone. And, I still don't believe they should throw a bomb when you're up on the state championship with 30 seconds to go in the game. But no play or aspect can completely sum a person up. You have to, when you are thinking about somebody, you need to evaluate somebody in their totality. And one thing I learned about him, that is one smart, talented dude that helps a lot of people out. So I learned that, especially if you're going to be in the public and be at least quasi media, I need to hear people out and be careful about what I put out there. So that was the toughest interview I did, but I'm glad I did it. And I learned a lot from it. Who I'd want to interview the most in 2023. I'm going to let you guys go on the tough. Let's take it one step at a time. Does anyone have another one they want to go first with?
I didn't have any really tough interviews. I've been part of interviews where I had to kind of keep my composure where I was being interviewed, not with any of y'all. 'Cause I do so much.
Well, you can do the other question. You can do the other questions then if you want.
Somebody want to interview? I mean, I aim high. There's people like I would love to interview as far as just because I want to be a fan of them or respect them when I interview them. So like, there's people like Dawn Staley, who I just think she is so unique and inspiring. I would love to interview Dawn Staley. I just like her attitude, her swag. I would love to interview, a guy like Patrick Ewing. I know Georgetown's not doing so well, but I like stories, and I feel like I make people comfortable because I'm authentic. But there's other people I would like to interview, man. A few principals and some other coaches, college I want to talk to. And I know it'll happen. But yeah, that's pretty much it when it comes to people I want to interview. So difficult interviews, I don't have anybody. Yeah.
So Dwight, I was invited on the Butch McAdams show. He's a local legend, and he has an AM show, and he invited me on because he heard my Michael Graham interview and he wanted to talk about it. So he got me on the show, and I was honored. It was great, and we were having this great conversation. Well, then he asked me about Patrick Ewing, and the Georgetown. What do you think? And there's no way in the world I'm gonna go on and talk badly about one of my heroes growing up. I have nothing bad to say about Patrick Ewing. I just can't criticize him on air. To me, who am I to talk about Patrick Ewing? So I wouldn't do it. And I think he got a little bit exasperated with me because, obviously it's not going well, but I feel like Georgetown's brand is safe. So whoever the next coach is, Georgetown's brand is going to bounce back and they're going to be fine. But it's not going to be me who talks badly about Patrick Ewing. That's not who I am. I have too much respect for him. So anyway,
that's what I mean when it comes to, because I do a lot of radio too, and because I'm on 106.7 The Fan, or when I do the one in Radford, Brent Pry's my guy. And I even, know Mike London is my guy, but I have to be honest, and it's tough. And also no information, a lot of times I have to sit on it because of my credibility. I can't leak it to Facebook or Twitter. I know stuff before it, like coaching changes. And that's hard because people will put you on the. So for me to answer your question, it's usually when I say keeping my composure, it's difficult because I am honest. Larry will say that I'm very honest, but sometimes it's a time and place, and you have to be careful because in our line of work, interviews, repeat interviews, and also getting another guy or woman on, you say something out loud, they're going to hear it. Like when you run this, people are going to hear it. And whatever you need to talk about, I'm talking about. But like sometimes you have to be careful. This is why I got on. This is when Rusty and Kirk first got their thing going. Jay Goldson's my guy now, but at first I was gonna find him. I was gonna get in the subvert. I was hot because he came on there and he was talking crazy. I'm like, Jay, what are you talking about? And that's why I said, Jay, I told him this. I called him up one day and I realized he's a really nice guy. He's a funny guy. But I did tell him this, and me and Larry talked about this a lot. In this line of work, you cannot just get on these podcasts and Facebook pages and say stuff. There are people listening and watching, and you have to be careful. Like he came on Facebook one time in the Prince William County chat talking about tech, and I finally said, look, dude, no one out of all these members has more knowledge about tech than me. So stop lying. And he was, oh, I'm sorry. But anyway, man.
Jay always knows everything. I got a funny Jay Goldston story from back in the dating days, but I used to see Jay at the club, but we're not gonna
Oh man.
That's BJ go way back. That's my guy too. But anyone else got it? My interview for 2022 would be Mike Tomlin. He's a Virginia guy. He went to William and Mary.
Great guy.
And I'm a big Steeler fan. I love the fact that the Steelers, so many times they write them off. The fans in Pittsburgh are brutal, even though the organization is very loyal. But he always finds a way to get that team back together. And he never gives up on the season and starts to think about draft choices. You know, he's going to keep coming at you and keep trying to win. And they may get lucky and make the playoffs this year. So that would be my interview for 2023 would be Mike Tomlin.
I can go next. In covering all three of your questions, I would say my favorite interview, when I look back at the impact it had on our show, is actually related to what Dwight said, and it would be Jay Golson, because Jay sparked that 757 debate, and I call him the God. I think I gave him the nickname, the Godfather of Prince William County sports, because he
nickname, by the way, great nickname.
Oh, thank you.
Great nickname.
Because he's kind of like what a lot of us from back home, like just a lot of pride, and you know, he knows stuff because he grew up here. His mom taught in the school system. He taught in the school system and coached and played. And sometimes he is way off, but you know what? Sometimes it's crazy sounding sometimes, and he might be wrong, but sometimes like it sounds crazy and Freedom does win the state championship and breaks the scoring record and all that stuff. He's the voice of freedom sports. So, you know, I got to give him that props. And then I think my most challenging interviews, it was two. One is we were told you need to interview this dude, Ron Peterson Jr. He's a Bethel alum, but he's also a Radford alum. And I thought it was, but he's written some great true crime stories, books. And Ron, you know, he wrote a couple of books that, you know, true crime that are really blowing up, and they're going to have maybe like a little, you know, TV show on them, on like, you know, one of those true crime things. But he played baseball at Bethel, and he was a part of Radford University's first Division I baseball team. And so I was challenging just because I didn't know this dude, and I'm thinking like, you know, this older, more mature. The dude graduated just like 4 years before me from Bethel, knew some of the same people, and I got to relax once I got to know him. And man, it's been a blessing to have met him, because like he'll comment on my stuff, and he likes, we know some of the same people. So I really was challenging, but I grew from that. The other one for me would be when we interviewed the Colgan crew, girls crew team. And so we had Caitlin Reardon and Coach Jeff Lucier. And because I don't know anything about crew. And I learned, but it was challenging because I don't know anything about it. But again, I learned. It was a great interview. We actually ended up having to do it twice because we had some technical difficulties, but I enjoyed it, but it wasn't my lane, you know. But I hope, just like I learned, I hope our audience, for the people that did get a chance to watch it, enjoy it, and learn something. And then lastly, who I could interview, I would like to interview the original Allen Iverson from Bethel High School, and that'd be Mike Dunn. Mike Dunn led Bethel to a football state championship in the 70s as a quarterback. Was a great basketball player and went on to play at Duke. And just like people don't know, a lot of us, like some people know, but like Dwight is a historian. Like Dwight played in the 90s, but he knows guys from the 70s and the 80s, and he talks about my brother and me, seeing me play, you know. But like Mike Dunn, I don't think a lot of people give him enough credit for just how great of an athlete he was when he played at Bethel. So he was Allen Iverson before Allen Iverson at Bethel.
Yeah, that's great, Rusty.
Hey, yo, Julian,
Mhm.
before you get to the other guys, I do have another trending moment of the year, and it's a funny one. And it was trending nationally. It was when Sherman Rivers, head coach of Patriot basketball team, talked about guys going to the prom over AAU tournaments.
Yeah, I remember that. That was, yeah.
That was. I'm sorry. I had to look at my notes. I was like, that was what I wanted to say when I got
So
stuck.
my son's team, Yorktown, was playing Washington Liberty, our arch rival, in the district final, and they had prom that night. So they moved the prom up. They moved our game up to 4:00 in the afternoon, and it was 97 degrees outside.
Ooh.
And they have a deeper team than us, so it was a huge
Yeah.
advantage for them to play in that kind of heat.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that it was. I remember that. That was funny. That sounds like Sherman, Jay Golson. You guys got some personalities in Prince William County.
Yeah, we do,
Yeah.
man. Prince
Yeah.
William, man. Prince William. And then just to answer the thing, you brought up Jay Golson. I do have an interview that was difficult. And it was actually something that had made it all the way to Barstool and TMZ. You guys may not know this. I know Kirk may know, because Kirk was following me from the moment I started Vicktory Life, the podcast. I interviewed a guy named Chris Malone.
Yeah.
Chris Malone was the offensive line coach at Tennessee Chattanooga. Chris Malone I still love him. He was my big brother. I played behind him. He grew up in Emporia, Virginia, right? Long story short, I interviewed him, ran the interview the next day. That night, this was around election time, he apparently made a bunch of comments leading up to the election about Stacey Abrams, the lady from Georgia, the politician, about some were racially or viewed racially insensitive, her weight and politics. Just he began to trend to the point where I got blindsided that night, where somebody I didn't even know tagged me in the post, said, "This is your boy." And I said, "What is going on here? I didn't know about this. What is this?" They were like, "Yeah, you know about him." And then people start, Twitter's crazy. I have almost 12,000 followers. I don't know all these people. And then they started coming at me as if I made the comments. So I immediately Kirk called me the next day. I literally had to text him and say, "Did you say this?" And he said, "Yeah, you might need to delete your interview with me, man, because it's going to get..."
Wow.
He told me, and I was like, "Oh my God." So I deleted it, and I had to kind of and he shut his Twitter account down. So now I'm the only one getting it. And I'm related to Mike Vick, so I've been in firestorms before. But I will say that one was tougher, because it's one thing when it's your cousin or your brother or your sister. It's another thing when it's your brand. And I had to release a statement in a couple of days afterwards saying his opinions did not reflect Vicktory Life. But there were topics on Facebook, and thank God he told me to do that, because the next day, every major media outlet, including Good Morning America, TMZ, Channel 4 News, everyone nationwide, it was on radio shows, XM Radio, was talking about his comments, and he subsequently got fired. So that was a difficult interview. Even though the interview went great, I didn't know whether or not I should delete the interview, because that was my big brother. But when he never made those comments on my show. Then I had a couple of my boys, they were like, "Hey man, keep it up, man. That's more views, man." I was like, "Nah, I don't want that kind of heat, man." So anyway, that was very difficult. I learned you never stop learning. That was a tough lesson to learn, because me and Larry talked about this off air. You gotta make sure when your guests come on, they're gonna rep your brand. Even when they're not part of your brand, they're repping your brand when they're on there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was tough.
Tough story. Kirk, did you go yet, Kirk?
No.
Okay.
My favorite interview, there's a bunch, but the high school volleyball player, Sarah Jordan.
Yeah, she was great.
She was, and that goes right in line, and I'll tie the two together with challenging interviews. There's multiple. We get high school students on, we don't know them that well. And a lot of them just are not a great interview. Great kids, they're just not a great interview. You're trying to pull a person up. She was fun to talk to. Kind of like what Rusty and I say. We're sitting around, we're talking. So if we're talking to a young athlete, we're going to have a different conversation than just all the sports stuff. But yeah, she was a lot of fun. And then again, some of the coaches also, but a lot of the student athletes can be challenging because you're trying to, you're trying to get something that's not possibly there. And then I would say, I thought about this for a bit. I would say that Bruce Arians would be my number one interview. Okay, you need a good interview, right? You can have a big name guest, but you need a good interview. And I would say that second would be Shaquille O'Neal. I love that guy. He is hilarious. I could talk to him all day long. Charles Barkley, guy from our hometown, Howard White. Executive vice president of the Jordan brand, established author, trailblazer in business, lives out in Portland, was selling Nikes in the 70s, late 70s out of his trunk up here. And then another one, again, this goes in line with Jeremiah Davis, who played football at Annandale and Penn State, is just an incredible interview. Really tells you stuff you don't know. That's the thing I like, is if you're going to interview somebody, if they've been interviewed a million times, I want to ask them some questions they haven't gotten. So Jeremiah's on several. Rusty pointed out when we talked about Brent Pry, which I think is our number one video, with Victor Jones, another guy who's got the gift of gab. But Jeremiah is very, very smart. He roomed with Larry Johnson Jr., and he's
at Penn State when he was finished runner-up for the Heisman. And I used to go to the games, and then afterwards I'd hang out in their apartment. The junkiest college apartment you've ever seen. The nastiest bathroom. I love you, Jeremiah, but I was scared to use your bathroom. And I've been in a lot of junky college dorms and apartments.
Kirk, I'm sorry, I interrupted you.
No. I was finished up, but whenever we're going to wrap up, there was something I did want to mention very briefly before we go. So
okay, yeah. Let me just do my two favorites. I'm trying to think if I've forgotten any of them, but I did Wally Walker last year, and Wally Walker was a UVA legend. He was our second great basketball player after Bruce Barry Parkhill.
Yep.
Yeah, maybe you can consider Gus Gerard a great player too, but he didn't stay long. But Wally Walker is a UVA legend. I mean, the legend of Wally Walker was unbelievable when I went to UVA. He had taken us to our first ACC title in school history in '76, and it just at the time he was still in the NBA, but he was just a legend. So when I interviewed him, I was nervous, and I don't mind being nervous. I usually, if I'm nervous, that means I care and I like it, and I end up doing well, so that's fine. So, but I was a little bit nervous, but it ended up, I thought we had a great interview, and I just knew I was really prepared, and just had so many good fortune. Like he happened to be from a town where there was one of my favorite bullets was from that town, Phil Walker, and he knew him, and there's a lot of nuggets I was able to bring out that he couldn't believe that I knew. So the interview was just great. At least from my perspective, I thought it went well, and we've been friends in contact ever since. And my second would be a guy that Kirk Byrd interviewed is J Dub. Now, you guys did a great job with J Dub, and I intentionally didn't watch the interview again for the year because I didn't want that. I don't like to watch someone else interview someone, because what happens is I feel trapped by the interview that's already happened. Like I already know things about them that I already know too much about them, and I feel kind of trapped by your interview. I want to do someone afresh, just go and learn about them. So I let a lot of time go by, because he contacted me, said, "Hey, I'd love to be on your show." And I said, "Look, I saw your interview with Kirk Byrd. It was great. Let's let some time go by first, and then you can come on the show." So by that time, it was more fresh in my mind. I did some research, but it was fresh, and he was just a great guy to talk to. You talk about he brings out the 757 stories. The way he talks about the Hampton rivalry, the Newport News rivalry, the way he talked about the UVA games. And I was in school. I was in graduate school then, but I was at all those games. I just enjoyed talking to him, and I just thought we had a rapport that was great. I think he'd probably have rapport with anyone he talked to because that's the kind of guy he is. But I just thought it went really well. I mean, I love all the folks that take the time to talk to me, but those are two that from last year, 2022, that are particularly, memorable to me.
Hey, Julian, I don't know if you know, but J-Dub's dad, George Wallace, was mayor of Hampton.
Absolutely.
Local politics can be dirty and nasty. And if you're a mayor, council city, or city council down there, or even up here, we know about it up here, board of supervisors and all. That's a great family. J-Dub's from a great family.
His family's great. I mean, that's one thing about JW. Even at school, people were saying he's from a great family. This is 35. This is 30 years ago. 30 years ago, they would say, "Oh, he's from a great family." Even back then, everyone knew that about J-Dub.
His dad was city manager. His mom taught at Bethel when I was there. And his older brother Eric, extremely smart, played at Navy, and his younger brother Damon, who I've also played with, went to Duke. Just good family, good. And I was proud. Jay was my boy. Like and he never, no matter how big or what, like he was like, I could call him, we hang out, like we come home. Now it's funny, we didn't grow up in the same neighborhood, but now our parents live 2 houses down from each other.
That's awesome.
In Farmington back home. So great dude, for real. That reminds me of one other interview that I really enjoyed, and I actually was texting with him this week. Was Darren Fullwood. Darren and I played.
It was awesome.
Darren played at the Naval Academy. Now he's an executive with Amazon, and he's overseeing the whole Amazon Arlington project. But still a great dude, down to earth. But it was a fun interview.
It is great when you make friends out of people you interview, because that wasn't necessarily your intention when you make, because we have a lot of friends, but you end up getting so much about them. And I've seen guys with all you guys. Larry does a great job of this too. Dwight, they love the fact that you care so much about their past and you're asking them these questions. When it's over, it's almost like it's over. They feel an attachment and they follow up. They thank you. When you get that thank you, it went well, but it's also a good person. If they take the time to thank you, when they don't thank you, you're not offended by it, but it does. You do notice. You notice. But when they take time to thank you, it just really makes you feel good about the interview and about the person, doesn't it?
Julian, that is a great point, and I'll give you 2 examples of that with me. I never met Sherman Rivers, Patriot coach. I've been around him. I've reffed his games. All right. But after we interviewed him, and I appreciate Dwight hooking that up, it's like I felt like I'd known him for years. And then I went and I did I was color analyst for one of his basketball games. But when I saw him, it's like I'm dapping dude up, and it was from the interview. And I was like, I feel like I've known you for years, and it was like it. So I'm feeling the same thing with Daryl Overton. I've known him because my son played 7-on-7 for him, and I've coached against him, and I've known him, and we went around. So I didn't not like him, but I was like, you always beat me. But in youth football, but when I got him on the show, it kind of changed the perspective, kind of like when he was on your show, and Julian, I don't know if you're going to do this one, but you said maybe I brought up like most embarrassing moments on our show. I bet Daryl that they would not. They've beaten Colgan for years by 50 and 60 and 70, 80 points. But on our show, I said you won't beat us by more. I said you'll win, but the point spread you won't beat them by more than 20. So we beat them by.
While you said that, I saw that interview too.
That man, and look, let me tell you how Daryl is. He reminded me before the game, but the 3 days after the game, because I think I changed it to 40 that during the week before. I said, no, it's 40. I think you won't beat us by more than 40. Brother called me a few days later and was like, we got to go to lunch, and I owe him lunch. So, but it. It was. I'm not gonna say he beat him that bad because of me. I think I knew it was other reasons, but it was just fun when we could talk about it later.
The fact that he remembered that, but he's such a good coach. It's almost like scary. His mind on football is really scary. That's how good a coach he is. And the fact that he did that to your team, and then remember, you know what? I'm gonna have to remind this guy of that. It just shows you how his mind is working, man. It's going a million. It's going a million
I think
miles.
too. I just want to add too. I think what Julian, you and Rusty just said is what I said an hour and a half ago, and I say this all the time that there's an ethical responsibility once you get into the media, even on a local level, on a smaller level with the podcasts and video blogs, even your tweets and Facebook posts. I think I'm not putting myself on a pedestal, but I do not engage in certain discussions on Facebook or Twitter with people that want to troll or disrespect guests or even some of these players that we cover. Because I think for some people, it's just whatever, but for us, it means more. And I think for those watching that's going to start their own show, that's going to go down the same path, it's levels to this. It's a certain passion you have to have. Now, I think that's why you have all of you guys on here doing so well and have done so well versus people that do it because they want to become viral or trend. You can get views, but there's a lot of stuff on TV right now that's just trash, or that does get posted that's trash. It's not so much that's not classy, it's just not good. Like, that's why controversy sells. I have controversial friends that would love to get on my show and say this and call people and curse and get all crazy, but that's what the whole Vicktory Life thing is about. Like, what is your legacy? When I look back on like some of my first guests, I always thank my guests and everybody because my stuff is taken off because people believe in my vision and the movement. The same thing, that's why I shout out Rusty and Kirk, because, and Julian, you saw that post I had about like the stuff you guys are doing, and Larry as well, for the locals. Like, there's so many stories that need to be told. So that's why I think y'all have that feeling of gratitude and acceptance and euphoria, because it's more than an interview. It's a feature. It's a story. It's a great segment, a great show, and people need to see it, and people appreciate it. I think there's other people out here. I'm not gonna get into naming names. I look at it. Number one, I know that they're copying us. Number two, I know it's not gonna last because you're not really putting your heart into it. Like, I'm gonna say this real quick. You get to know me, Julian. I'm very outspoken. I have had people literally go through my stuff and then a month later take the same guest. And not because they enjoyed it, but it's because they're trying to get the same attention. That's not good. That's sad to me. So anyway.
Yeah. Well, guys, that's great. And you're right. But I've learned, to me, my goal is not to get views or even sponsors or all that, which would be great. My main goal is for people who would be honored to be on my show. I want like, if any level of person will be honored to be asked to be on my show. That's my main goal. It'd be nice to have the rest of that stuff too, but that's what I'm really going for. Like, I want to be on the Nova Legends podcast. I want to be on that show. And that's, if I can get that, hopefully everything else will last. So I'm more worried about my brand. I don't want to compete. I hate conflict, but that's important to me. Guys, look, I wanted to give everyone a final chance to tell people where to find you, but also any final comments that you guys may have about last year, about anything involving local sports or the podcast industry. Now's the time to do it. Want to go in the same order? Larry, you've been quiet. You want to go first, or should I go in the same order?
I'm going the same order.
Okay. Kirk, why don't you go first, Kirk?
Yeah. Podcasting, there's a lot of information out there. I think the biggest thing is to have fun, to be positive. Everything you say and do on social media will never go away. And I've done some things I wish I wouldn't have. I'm not famous, so I'd probably not record it. But there's a lot of great stuff out there. And I think it was Benjamin Franklin that said, and it took me till I got older, but praise in public, criticize in private. So one of the things that I always try to, I don't want to criticize in an open forum a high school player, because they're kids. They're kids. And the college players, little different. I don't want to make it personal. I don't mind a college player who might be making NIL and these type of things and headed to the pros. I don't mind saying they didn't play well, but, calling somebody names and things like that. And I'll close with this. We talk about athletes all the time. And a Virginian that rarely gets mentioned is the great Arthur Ashe from Richmond.
Oh, God.
Neighborhood. Was the first African-American to make a Davis Cup, won the French, Wimbledon, and Australian. Went to UCLA. He was brought up in Richmond during segregation. He had to move to St. Louis for his senior year, and just a great, great man and a great athlete. His father would not allow him to play football. So who knows what the great Arthur Ashe would have been, but he was a phenomenal athlete, athlete. So
Kirk, you can go online and there's a Frank DeFord documentary on from ESPN. You may have already seen it. You seen it?
No,
Yeah.
but I love Frank DeFord.
Oh, it's amazing. Arthur Ashe. It's just an hour long. It's incredible. It's just incredible. So, Kirk, did you want to tell us where to find you, or
yeah, the Kirk Byrd Show. The Kirk Byrd. Just Google it. You'll find us. We're all over the place. The Kirk Byrd Show. So that's it.
Rusty, you want to go next, or?
Yeah, sure. I'll just say that it's a thing for me is like my brother would say. My brother who has a great legacy on his own, but he's still my little brother, and it's funny to see him look up to me and say, and he will tell people like, no, he actually. Then we debate sports all the time, and he's like, nobody knows more sports than my brother. I told somebody you know more than, and so it's funny because I don't necessarily just know it. I mean, I'm not studying. It's just what I love to do, and so then what Kirk and I do is what I would be doing anyway. And that's what I tell people about me coaching youth football, middle school football, refereeing high school basketball. Julian, if I wasn't calling those games, I'd go watch Carol Lawson. I'd be watching some of these players, the high school teams. And so the fact that I talk about it, I feel comfortable about it, man. I was a little nervous getting into this area because I was like, oh man, people might question. But once I got out there and started talking, I was like, I know what I'm talking about. And so I feel blessed. One is that my partner, Kirk, believed in me enough to say, yeah, let's do this. Let's join. And then just blessed with the relationships I've been able to develop and then cultivate because of this forum. And it's allowed me to not only talk about sports, but to highlight some of the youth and some of the coaches. We take for granted some of these coaches. They don't get the publicity they used to get with local papers. And so I'm thrilled when a Sherman Rivers will be on my show. Like he's like, dude, I want to be on your show. Like, no joke. Dwight Vick wanted to be on my show. Like we've got guys that like, yeah, like, and it's funny because Kirk and Byrd is like becoming a thing. And it's just me. I'm just a local dude, man. And I will have people when we go to state championship, like football, people like, you got that show. And it just, I don't do this for money, man. I do it because I just love sport. And clearly I don't do it for money because we don't get paid. I've paid a lot more to do this than I ever would have made. But man, I would be doing this same thing if there was no Zoom. But again, the relationships. And then, I've spoken a lot about sports, but my faith and my Christianity, I don't hide that. And Kirk has allowed me and on our forum where appropriate, I've brought that up. And I've just been blessed. To have, the family, the relationships that I have, and this outlet.
Well, Rusty, you have an enthusiasm for it's infectious, and I think your viewers appreciate it. And I think you and Kirk, the fact it's hard to have partners in life. It's partnerships make everything difficult. It takes work. When they work well, things are easier. But it's hard to get them to work well. The fact that you guys have been able to find partners that didn't even know each other. I don't think you even knew each other. It's just a wonderful story. And I think Prince William County is lucky to have you guys because
Let me say this: I knew of Kirk, but we didn't really know each other that well. We have a mutual friend, Russell Arrington. But this is when I knew we were the closest. It's when we had our biggest argument. Kirk was furious.
Oh yeah.
We hung up. We couldn't finish the show. That we didn't think. But we got back on, and I told him that's what brothers do. That's what brothers do. And I'm not saying Kirk has plenty of siblings, but I said that's when I knew we were going to work because I dished it out and we went at it, but then we still came back and the show still works.
Yeah, it does. It was a lot of fun during football, especially. So, oh man. Every week I was waiting to hear what Rob had to say and what Jay Golds had to say, what what Rusty had to say, what Kirk had to say. It was you guys had it going on, and now we got basketball. You want to go next, Larry?
I guess I piggyback what y'all was saying about the relationships. Of course, me going through 2 co-hosts, just trying to get them to see a vision. What people don't know is that I'm a person, I'm an alpha personality, and I'm a leader, but I can also play a number 2. And I'd rather play a number 2 than rather be out front. And that's just where I've always been. Because I can do whatever you do. Some people can't do what I do. But relationships are important with this podcast thing, So I don't, people kind of look at me and be like, well, he went through 2 co-hosts, but he has to be the problem. So what? I mean, I don't really care about that. But if they really knew, the background of it, then they will understand, where I come from. I didn't get to where I'm at in a short period of time being stupid. To be able to come from out of nowhere and to take BallinVA to being, regular household name now, it took something, so I had a little help with that. So, but that's pretty much all I got to say.
Well, first of all, Larry, partnerships are very tough. So I think people assume that these things aren't going to work out. They're more likely not to work out than work out. So I don't think you ever have to explain a partnership. But in terms of being alpha, your strength to me of your show is you own that, your studio. You have this commanding presence when you are running your show, and people come into your home and you command it, and it really works well. And I think, as you see, the response has been nothing short of extraordinary. And I think that's just who you are. Maybe you were meant to have a partner and be a number 2. Maybe you're meant to run your own show. And I think the numbers speak for themselves. So
I also think Larry's a little more, he's saying it like, but y'all don't know, like Larry's actually humble in so many ways. Like he knows a lot of people. Like I'm telling you, the first time we talked on the phone, brother was kicking knowledge and we're going back and forth, agreeing on most stuff. Yeah, some points we might not have totally agree. But this is where I'm saying what I love about him is we talked, but like one time, like, and he had been on the show, but like Larry, when I told him, I texted him, I said, hey, my son's got a 7-on-7 tournament in Richmond. He was like, bet, I'll meet up with you. And sometimes people say that, it doesn't work out. But like Larry really showed up, He showed up and we talked and we fellowship, and my cousins came in, and one of my best friends from college came, but Larry just fit in with everybody. And I was like, yo, that dude is real, man. And it may just, different partnerships work and don't, but I can guarantee this. If I was doing a show in Richmond, I would want Larry to be my partner and we'd make that thing work.
Oh, absolutely.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
I would say this, Larry's flow is the best. He has a really good flow. Yeah. I think a lot of that's natural, but also in person, when you're physically with someone, it's a lot easier to get that pause, not interrupt. It is harder on this environment. I think the technology will get better, but I always like, what I like about Larry's show is I get lost in it, because it's the subject really good. Really
it's just
good.
Guys trying to make it.
Again, Larry doesn't give himself enough credit, but that dude has contacts. Like the people on the show, he got us, players from he got Coach Taylor, Troy Taylor. He got, why am I blanking out on
Harry. AD at Hot Springs. Harry's awesome, man. I love it.
Yeah, Harry. He got us Harry, but he also got Virginia Tech players. He got to play with my brother,
Hank Coleman.
And so, man, like, and he knows so many people. I'm talking about, hey, my boy Kendrick. Timmy. He knows the people, and it's just a matter of him reaching out, and they be like, I love to do it. So, yeah, shout out to 804 Larry, man. Larry Legend.
And he picked a great partner in Morrisette Media as well. So Dwight, you got any parting shots final thoughts?
I just want to again, I think this has been phenomenal. You asked about 2022. 2022 was a great year because we all survived and we all grew and prospered. We overcame a lot. I'm big on mental health. So, to me, the closer we get back, I don't like to use the word normal, but just getting back to our regular everyday thing was great. And what you guys don't realize, Julian, you, Larry, connecting with him, he's now a friend of mine. We talk. And then even like with Kirk and Rusty, that show, you guys have become household names. And like, I think what you guys have been able to do, whether you recently started like Larry or Julian, you gave life and you opened the door and the window to a lot of great coaches and people and
Thank you.
cyclists and track runners and superintendents, and those stories are phenomenal. And I was checking for Kirk and Rusty's show in 2022. I had it on my dashboard, on my phone, listening. I'm like, okay, I can't wait to see if people backpedal on their picks. And I think I don't want you guys to shortchange the impact you've had on the state of Virginia and the DMV, Northern Virginia and DC and Maryland and the entire Commonwealth. I think what we're doing is very special. I don't think we all realize how big it was and how it's been a blessing. And the great thing about it is it all happened organically. Like me and Larry were talking, and Rusty as well. I had individual conversations with them. We all have our lane, and we all do it well. And I appreciate it. I'm inspired. And I just, for those that's coming up, that's watching it, man, please keep supporting these talented people in your community. The Legacy Spotlight I do, Vicktory Life. You can find me. I'm everywhere: Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, even Snapchat. I uplift other people in my daily life. I inspire, I mentor, I counsel, I solve problems, I help people. But you guys also help me because I see these stories, these interviews, these spotlights, these features, and it's inspiring. And I love it. And I also think it's great to give people a chance to tell their story. And also to remind people about what they've done because their legacy is impactful. And I think that's what's great about all this. And for those watching, man, just keep supporting these young people out here, man. These local athletes playing. I love the fact that, Julian, your show highlights so many coaches and players and female and male athletes, guys from the 70s, 80s, and 90s. Larry, you do a great job with 804. Your Passion came out a few weeks ago when you and the guy from Byrd were on there on Kirk and Byrd Show, the head coach from Byrd, and you start going in. But I love it. You guys don't realize, man, I make time for all the stuff y'all do. So for those watching, man, please continue to support this. I love it, Julian. This is our time of the year because my wife is a fan of yours. She sees the stuff you post. Her and Tay Barber's mom, Michelle Martin, Tay Barber, the great player.
Yeah.
They subscribe to your show. I shared in my group chats. I've shared it to my mom, my people back in Hampton.
Oh, wow.
So keep doing your thing, man. All of y'all, man. God bless y'all. Let's keep building. Let's keep challenging each other, pushing each other to be great men. And I'm excited about 2023. I'm praying that we have prosperity, good health, and in all our aspects of our life.
Yeah.
Dwight, that's beautiful. So that's interesting. Dwight, I started doing podcasts the same way you did. I just happened to I was talking to Jim Lewis. He was the first Black player in the public school leagues in Northern Virginia.
Yep.
And I was just like, I got to get this interview. We got to put this on YouTube or something.
Yeah.
I did that interview, and then someone said, well, you need to do that. And the same way you did. You need to do him. And what's wrong with me? You're not going to do me. And then it just kind of, it took off from there. But it's funny, at a time in my career, and I mentioned this before, like Kirk, I'm in the sales industry. And, for me, you're only as good as your last envelope when you're in sales. I mean, I'm out there, trying to make money, and it's a lot of pressure that I love. But, I've really fallen in love with the relationships and just hearing the stories. Not only that, trying to perfect the art of doing an interview. Watching guys like watching JJ Redick, do it. He does a good interview. Watching the guys on 60 Minutes historically, watching them interview, just watch random people do interviews and try to learn something. Still being true to myself. As Dwight was saying, I have all you guys on subscribe and, ding and alarm. So when you guys drop something, if I have time, I try to get in, right away and listen to see what you guys are up to. And I always try to do something different than you guys, just because, first of all, our personalities are totally different. I think Dwight and I have similar interviews in terms of we're trying to do the same type of interview, but then he's got highlights, he's got production that I don't have, So, we all, Kirk and Byrd, they don't even need guests. You guys can duck it up about NFL and it'll be funny. I'm not funny. I'm just that my person, everyone's different. Larry has a way, he's got the strong personality command. We all have a little bit different lane, and I'm always trying to be unique while respecting the art form of other, podcasters and try to learn as much as I can. So it's been great for me to learn. Maybe I have a new talent. I met a whole bunch of new friends. I mean, I went to a basketball game, the Patriot Hayfield game. There's Dwight over there. Everywhere I go, I see people that I know. It's always been like that a little bit back in the day, but I hadn't refereed since 2005, and I kind of been out of it. So this is kind of put me back in the spotlight a little bit. And it's interesting. I was talking about Coach Overton, and again, a great guy. But I remember when we were having this thing going on, I'm like, I just won the state championship. He won't care what Julian Brown says. He just won the state championship. People are talking about me. And so it was interesting.
That's what I'm saying. Your impact. You guys said your impact. Y'all have an impact.
That's why I was like, I got to reach out. We got to talk, because this guy is too special for me to be, ruined, raining on this parade. So you're right. So it's a blessing to have this this platform, and I appreciate what you guys do. We went a long time, but maybe at some point we can do the same thing on one of your guys' channel, and you guys can set the agenda next time. I don't want to hog all the, let you guys set the agenda, but maybe we could touch other issues and do the same thing again.